Chapter 993. Mu Yu looked at Meng Po in disgust. Every time he fought with the people from the gate of hell, he always felt that the other party's cultivation method was too disgusting. However, he had to admit that after Meng Po drank the seemingly endless Meng Po soup in her hand, her entire body's yin qi had overshadowed Mu Yu's imposing manner. "It seems that I have no choice but to use my trump card." Meng Po smiled miserably. Then, a black-clothed skeleton suddenly appeared behind her. As soon as this skeleton appeared, the entire twin corpse seemed to have quieted down. It was as if all the focus was on it. The surrounding yin qi also constantly gathered towards it, as if it was the source of the yin qi. Its aura was steady and full of yin qi. It was extremely strange. Standing there, it was more like a mountain pressing down heavily on Mu Yu's chest. Mu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He already knew who this skeleton belonged to. It was Ghost Lord's twin. Such a terrifying, imposing manner. "I'm afraid it's at least half a step into the Great Ascension stage." Mu Yu's heart was also very heavy. The skeleton in front of him was stronger than all the Crossing Calamity stage experts he had encountered. Although it hadn't reached the Great Ascension stage, it was estimated that it had already begun to understand the Great Ascension stage's heavenly Tao. However, Mu Yu was also slightly relieved. When he had returned to the past, Ghost Lord had taken out a ghost flag that could display the power of a domain to help. Mu Yu had thought that Ghost Lord had reached the Great Ascension stage at this time. Now, it seemed that this wasn't the case. The skeleton's strength was the same as the people from the Gate of Hell. In other words, Ghost Lord hadn't reached the Great Ascension stage yet. Even so, Mu Yu didn't dare to underestimate the current Ghost Lord's twin. A character with half a step into the Great Ascension stage was far from easy to deal with. "Let's capture him together." Meng Po let out a strange laugh. She used her blood to imprison Duke Meng's head in the air. Then, she and the Ghost Lord twins behind her moved at the same time. The two of them flanked Mu Yu from the left and right. Meng Po's ghost hairpin emitted waves of ghostly howls. It grew to a length of 100 feet and resembled a strange and sharp awl. The tip of the ghost hairpin pierced through the void, causing streams of blood to gush out. It was incomparably gloomy. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before Mu Yu. The endless sword qi in Mu Yu's hand immediately turned into blue lightning. As the lightning flashed, it emitted a masculine and violent aura, as if it could annihilate any evil thing in the world. However, just as Mu Yu's lightning was about to meet the ghost hairpin, the Ghost Lord twins suddenly appeared in front of the lightning. They reached out with their cold and broken hands and grabbed Mu Yu's lightning sword. Pa! The lightning bolts that Mu Yu had used to deal with the twin skeletons had been completely annihilated by the Ghost Lord twins when they caught hold of them. This guy wasn't afraid of lightning at all. Everything in the world reinforced and restrained each other. Although lightning could restrain most of the gloomy things, in the face of absolute strength, it was useless no matter how restrained it was. At this time, Meng Po's ghost hairpin had already passed by the Ghost Lord twins and stabbed towards Mu Yu. Suddenly, a golden formation pattern appeared in front of Mu Yu. So close, yet worlds apart appeared again. However, the ghost hairpin looked extremely sharp. It was only blocked for a moment before it directly penetrated the formation pattern. Meng Po's strength also surpassed Mu Yu's. Not only that, after the Ghost Lord twins destroyed Mu Yu's sword qi, they didn't stop. Instead, they stepped on the void and continued to reach out to grab Mu Yu. The ghost hairpin and the Ghost Lord twins arrived in front of Mu Yu in the blink of an eye. The two of them surrounded Mu Yu, not giving him any chance to attack. Mu Yu's heart also trembled. The chaotic yin and yang revolved around the shadow clone sword. At the same time, he forcefully clashed with Meng Po and the Ghost Lord twins. Bang! Mu Yu's shadow clone sword blocked Meng Po's ghost hairpin, but a powerful force came from the palms of the Ghost Lord twins. Mu Yu's hand felt like it was hit by a boulder. His entire palm was burning with pain. The ghost Qi invaded his body and wanted to destroy his meridians. Mu Yu quickly retreated. It was just a simple exchange, but Mu Yu had already suffered a loss. The black and white spirit power in his body quickly surged and swallowed the ghost Qi of the Ghost Lord twins. However, the other party didn't give Mu Yu any chance to breathe. The Ghost Lord twins' body erupted with a terrifying force. They once again waved their palms and slapped towards Mu Yu. The other party's speed was so fast that he almost couldn't react. The cultivation of the Ghost Lord twins was almost half a step into the Great Ascension stage. This kind of strength was quite terrifying. When the palms slapped down, the violent ghost Qi splashed everywhere. There was actually a trace of domain aura. Boom! Mu Yu clenched his teeth and quickly retreated. The Ghost Lord twins' palms that could destroy heaven and earth directly slapped the ground of the Twin Corpse Sea. The entire Twin Corpse Sea shook violently. The gloomy ghost Qi swept out with the palms as the center, twisting the weak corpses into dust. I must find a way to deal with the Ghost Lord twins. Mu Yu's mind raced. Although Mengpa couldn't use the twins' ghost techniques because of Duke Meng, her ghost tools were very powerful. The Ghost Lord twins had already forced Mu Yu into a sorry state by relying on their speed and strength. If he didn't find a way to deal with one of them, it would be very difficult for him to gain an advantage in the Twin Corpse Sea today. The 8 trigrams array pattern rippled under Mu Yu's feet. The green array pattern appeared and turned into a water curtain. It directly merged into the void as if nothing had happened. However, Mu Yu's figure suddenly became illusory, as if it couldn't be seen. Mengpa also discovered the strangeness of Mu Yu's array technique. However, she and the Ghost Lord twins were currently stronger than Mu Yu. Therefore, she didn't panic at all. She just sneered and said, "Insignificant skill. Why don't you just surrender?" As she said that, the ghost hairpin once again erupted with a pale green brilliance and a blood-red light. The two lights intertwined with each other and were filled with a corrosive stench. It was nauseating. These two rays of light quickly rushed towards Mu Yu, and wherever they went, the twin corpses would melt away like ice and snow as soon as they came into contact with the red and green light. What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and dodge. This is this old woman's ghost technique, extreme devouring. It's extremely corrosive. Don't take it head-on. Although Duke Meng looked very gloomy, seeing that Mu Yu was about to be buried under the red and green lights, he couldn't help but remind him. Because compared to what Mengpa had done to him, he was more willing to believe that this person who suddenly broke in could kill Mengpu and avenge him. Old man, you're siding with an outsider. This makes me very sad. But no matter how much you remind me, it's useless. He's already a dead man. Meng Po's toothless mouth revealed a strange smile. She still believed in her speed because the Ghost Lord Twin Corpse Sea had already sealed off Mu Yu's escape route. Mu Yu simply couldn't retreat. He could only take her extreme devouring head-on. The Ghost Lord Twin Corpse Sea's incomparably powerful palms whistled through the air. They appeared behind Mu Yu and slapped towards the back of Mu Yu's head. At this time, the extreme devouring had also quickly rushed in front of Mu Yu. No matter how fast Mu Yu's body was, there was no way he could escape. Whoosh! The pale green light and the red light pierced Mu Yu's body at the same time, nailing Mu Yu in the air. At this time, the Ghost Lord Twin Corpse Sea's palms also slapped towards Mu Yu's chest. Mengpa revealed a proud expression. As long as she killed Mu Yu, everything would be easy. Sigh. I thought that after so many years, an outsider finally appeared and I could use his death aura to help me escape. Unfortunately, this old woman is too sinister. How could he be her opponent? Duke Meng, who only had his head left, looked at Mu Yu in disappointment. He sighed slightly. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to leave this place for the rest of his life. 10 miles away from the gate of hell, Tian Ran had already retreated quickly. She took little Shuai and jumped away from the gate of hell. She didn't dare to use her full strength near the gate of hell. Not to mention whether or not she could defeat the gate of hell's ghost lord Nether. Once the two of them fought, it would cause a huge commotion. It would definitely alarm the others in the gate of hell. If the ghost lord appeared, then it would be even more impossible for her to escape. However, Tian Ran wanted to escape, but Nether followed her like a shadow. His speed wasn't any slower than Tian Ran's, and he didn't directly attack Tian Ran. It was more like a game of cat and mouse. Little girl from the Red Dust sect, I only want to ask you one thing. Has Mu Yu entered the gate of hell? Nether asked calmly. Tian Ran had been fleeing at top speed. When she was about 1,000 miles away from the gate of hell, she stopped and turned to look at Nether, who was covered in a yellow shadow. If you want to harm Big Brother Mu Yu, you'll have to ask the sword in my hand first. Tian Ran lightly shouted. The golden lotus bloomed once again, and the immortal dew sword drew a golden light. It was like a biting cold autumn water brushing past, rushing towards Nether. Even if she attacked Nether now, it wouldn't alarm the people in the gate of hell. Then I'll capture you and use you to deal with him. At this time, Nether was still stepping on that terrifying python. The python opened its bloody mouth and bit towards the golden lotus. At the same time, Nether's shadow-like figure suddenly scattered, turning into a giant yellow hand. It covered the sky and covered the earth as it rushed towards Tian Ran. Tian Ran's golden lotus was completely swallowed by the giant python. Nether's giant hand was also very powerful, leaving Tian Ran with no way to retreat. She was about to be covered. However, at this time, a golden sword light soared into the sky. The biting cold sword energy was majestic, dignified, and elegant. It rose from Tian Ran's hand and broke through the destructive giant yellow hand. It completely disintegrated Nether's attack. The sword energy rushed into the sky, as if it suddenly shattered the wind and clouds in the sky, causing the entire sky to tremble. Do you really think I'm so easy to bully? Tian Ran's eyes flashed with a golden light. The immortal dew sword in her hand had a majestic aura. It was actually able to faintly communicate with the sword intent of the heaven and earth. 9 heavenly sword summoning, falling star sword. Tian Ran suddenly shouted. The golden light on her body was incomparably strong. Everyone thought she was only the heavenly daughter of the Red Dust sect, but they forgot about her other shocking identity. Chapter 994. Perhaps Tian Ran's identity as the heavenly daughter of the mortal world made her the center of attention in the cultivation world. However, what the world didn't know was that Jian Ing Chen Feng was Tian Ran's father. When Tian Ran stayed at the Falling Dust Mountain for a year, although she didn't reveal her identity, Feng Haochen already knew who Tian Ran was and taught the Heavenly Sword 9 guides to her. At this time, Tian Ran stood in the air like a holy and elegant goddess. The immortal dew sword in her hand emitted an elegant golden light that pierced straight into the clouds. The sword energy in the sky stirred up the wind and clouds, faintly communicating with the sword intent of the heavens. Countless petals floated down from the sky. These petals were crystal clear and didn't seem to have any pattern. However, all of a sudden, a biting cold sword intent erupted from all of the petals. It was like a divine sword falling from the sky full of stars. Each sword energy was incomparably mysterious. Using the falling star meteorite sword, it vividly displayed the sword intent of the heavenly sword. Whoosh! The sword intent that filled the sky formed a strong wind that quickly fell towards the yellow python and Huang Quan. The sword energy was very swift and pure, wanting to exterminate all evil in the world. The yellow python originally wanted to devour Tian Ran's sword intent again. However, when it swallowed the first sword intent that fell from the petals, its expression suddenly changed. Not everything could be devoured by it. The sword intent invaded the yellow python's body, entering through its bloody mouth and coming out from its throat. It forcibly pierced a huge hole in the yellow python's body. After the yellow python was penetrated by the sword intent, it became incomparably irritable and crazily roared. However, even more sword intent fell in an instant. This time, the yellow python wanted to escape, but it was already one step too late. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The falling star meteorite sword's sword energy fell densely and directly penetrated the yellow python. The yellow python's body was like paper and was instantly pierced into a sieve. Now, Sister Tianran! Little Shuai shouted from Tianran's shoulder. Tianran had only learned the 9 fetters of heaven sword, but she had not reached the stage where she could communicate with the heavens and earth. Just now, little Shuai had taught Tianran how to use the real 9 fetters of heaven sword. All right. The immortal dew sword in Tianran's hand slanted. A tyrannical sword chi came from the sky and fiercely slashed towards the yellow python. Although Tianran was still unfamiliar with using the sword intent of firmament, she was, after all, talented and intelligent. Under Little Commander's guidance, the power of the sword was very strong even though she had not mastered even one level. The immortal dew sword's golden sword beam slashed down from the sky, directly dispersing the yellow python that had been riddled with holes by the fallen star sword. However, Huang Quan's figure had already floated out and left the range of the sword chi. Even though the python beneath him had been destroyed, he did not seem to have suffered any injuries. He did not even reveal his true appearance. However, this time, when he spoke, his voice was a bit surprised. What a powerful 9 fetters of heaven sword! You really did learn this move. Not only did I learn this move, I also want to kill you. Tianran lightly snorted. The immortal dew sword in her hand once again stirred up the wind and clouds in the sky. However, at this moment, Huang Quan's figure suddenly disappeared in the sky. He came quickly and left quickly, as if he had directly escaped. Just as Tianran felt that it was a bit strange, Huang Quan's voice once again resounded through the sky. You have exceeded my expectations. However, just based on this, you still cannot defeat me. Huang Quan's voice seemed to appear in all directions, as if he was hidden in various places. It was impossible to pinpoint his specific location, as if he was everywhere. Then, yellow pythons suddenly rose from the ground. Tianran looked at the countless pythons that had suddenly appeared and her expression suddenly changed. She cried out in alarm, "You are not someone from the gate of hell." I am, but I am also not. It depends on how you interpret it. Huang Quan's voice was very strange. In the twin corpse sea, Duke Meng, who only had his head left, was very disappointed. He knew Meng Po's weakness and also knew how to deal with her. As long as he could leave the twin corpse sea, he would have a way to capture Meng Po. However, now that he had been dismembered by the vicious Meng Po, even if he still retained his consciousness, there was nothing he could do. Originally, he had hoped that Mu Yu, who had broken into the twin corpse sea, would be able to help him capture Meng Po, but now it seemed that this sudden stranger would not be able to do all this in his eyes. Meng Po's extreme Devour and the Ghost Lord twins' palms landed on Mu Yu's body one after another. Meng Po's chrysanthemum-like face revealed a strange and sinister smile. She could even imagine the scene of Mu Yu's brain splattering everywhere and his body vanishing. As long as she killed Mu Yu and captured Mu Yu's soul, it would be a great contribution to the Triple Palace. Whoosh! The alternating red and green extreme Devour had already penetrated Mu Yu's body. The Ghost Lord twins had also slapped Mu Yu's heart. However, whether it was the extreme Devour or the Ghost Lord twins' attacks, it was as if they had hit an illusion. They passed through Mu Yu's body, but Mu Yu still stood in place. He didn't even blink. How is this possible? Meng Po was shocked. Her cloudy and sinister eyes suddenly emitted a bright light. Her extreme Devour had clearly penetrated Mu Yu's body, but Mu Yu acted as if nothing had happened. He even looked at her with disdain. Not only that, but the Ghost Lord twins' palms, which had been gathering power, had missed. They had passed through Mu Yu's body and collided with the extreme Een Devour. Boom! The extreme Een Devour was incomparably evil. It had actually corroded and melted the hands of the Ghost Lord twins. Meng Po's Ghost Lord twins were also very destructive to her own people. Although the Ghost Lord twins were incomparably strong, they still couldn't withstand this attack. Most importantly, before the Ghost Lord twins were invaded by the extreme Een Devour, its powerful strength had also shattered the extreme Een Devour. The berserk strength flowed through the extreme Een Devour and into Meng Po's ghost hairpin. The ghost hairpin suddenly trembled. With a "kacha" sound, a crack appeared on it. No! Meng Po looked at her ghost hairpin with incomparable heartache. This ghost hairpin was her most powerful magic tool. After refining it for so many years, it had long been connected to her mind. At this time, the Ghost Lord twins' punch, which was much stronger than hers, had landed on the ghost hairpin. The strength of the punch was also transmitted to her body, causing the ghost chi in her body to tumble. She grabbed the ghost hairpin and fiercely retreated. However, the Ghost Lord twins had also been completely melted by her extreme Een Devour. The extreme Een Devour was very tyrannical. After melting the Ghost Lord twins, the Ghost Lord twins didn't reassemble as quickly as the others. On the contrary, the speed at which they reassembled became very slow. So your thing can restrain these twin corpses. How ironic! Mu Yu coldly stared at Meng Po. He had just used a powerful mirror array. At the critical moment, he forcibly changed his position and blinded Meng Po's eyes. Then Mu Yu used the wind shifting flowers into trees array to forcibly transfer the attack of the Ghost Lord twins to Meng Po's extreme Een Devour. However, at this time, he had also consumed a lot of spiritual power. Because using the wind shifting flowers into trees array to resolve the attack of the Ghost Lord twins, it was also quite strenuous for him. The Ghost Lord twins were figures who were half a step into the Great Ascension stage. It was not so easy to transfer their palm. Who is this person? How can he be so strong? Duke Meng, who was watching the battle from the side, was also shocked. He originally thought that Mu Yu would definitely die under the pincer attack of Meng Po and the Ghost Lord twins. He didn't expect that Mu Yu would use another method to avoid this fatal attack. Not only did he injure Meng Po, but he also prevented the Ghost Lord twins from reassembling quickly. The shadow sword in Mu Yu's hand once again raised the cyan sword chi. The endless sword chi instantly turned into a blue lightning in the air. The lightning had already surrounded the Ghost Lord twins, who had not yet fully recovered. The powerful lightning array pattern struck the Ghost Lord twins. This time, the corpses of the Ghost Lord twins could no longer resist Mu Yu's tyrannical lightning. "Do you think you can hurt me like this? You are too naive." Although Meng Po's Ghost Lord twins cracked her hairpin, she was not so easily defeated. Seeing the Ghost Lord twins being smashed by the lightning and unable to reassemble, her heart was filled with resentment. She roared and rushed towards the Ghost Lord twins, wanting to destroy the lightning. However, a black and white 8 trigrams array blocked Meng Po's path, not letting Meng Po get close to the Ghost Lord twins. "Isn't it fairer for us to fight one-on-one?" Mu Yu's body flashed with mysterious array patterns. The shadow sword appeared and disappeared around him. It was as if there was a heavenly sword hidden everywhere around him. "Fight one-on-one? Even if we fight one-on-one, you are not my opponent." Granny Meng laughed strangely. With a wave of her hands, the bowl used to hold Granny Meng's soup reappeared in the air. At this time, the bowl had already been filled with stinking blood. It was bubbling horribly, as if it was the liquid left behind by a soaked corpse. The cracked hairpin in the air quickly shrank and fell into Meng Po's bowl. The hairpin was stained with the blood-red water. The cracks that appeared on it were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Mu Yu frowned. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. When he reacted, he heard another whistling sound behind him. The 6 tribulation passing stage twins that were originally trapped by Mu Yu's lightning had broken free from the lightning and surrounded Mu Yu. Why do I feel like the 6 tribulation passing stage twins have become stronger? What the hell is going on? Mu Yu's eyes flashed with a puzzled look. At this time, Duke Meng, who only had his head left, suddenly said, "This old woman's extreme devouring body is very powerful. Your lightning was devoured by her ghost art. Extreme devouring body is not simple. It has now protected the 6 tribulation passing stage twins." Mu Yu's shadow sword flashed with lightning array patterns again, and slashed at the tribulation passing stage twins. However, when the lightning spread to the twins, it did not turn them into ashes like before. Instead, a sinister aura rose from the twins and destroyed Mu Yu's array patterns. Your lightning is formed by array patterns. It is not real lightning. How can it resist my extreme devouring body? Meng Pa sneered. Chapter 995. There were 8 crossing calamity stage cultivators. Even if 7 of them were just corpses and couldn't use any spells, their speed and strength were quite terrifying. It was enough to pose a threat to Mu Yu. Especially the twin of the Gate of Hell's Gate Master, who was half a step into the Great Ascension stage. With a single punch, it could shatter heaven and earth. Mu Yu didn't dare to underestimate it. Mu Yu's shadow sword chi swept down again. The sword light flashed and slashed the surrounding corpses. However, this time, not only was the corpse not destroyed by Mu Yu's sword chi, it even absorbed Mu Yu's sword chi. What a strange extreme devouring! Mu Yu quickly retreated, avoiding the punch of the Ghost Lord twin. The other 6 crossing calamity stage corpses also attacked, not giving Mu Yu any chance to breathe. The formation patterns around Mu Yu surged again, and the mirror image formation appeared again. He had already avoided the siege of the 6 crossing calamity stage corpses. The mirror image formation could confuse the opponent and confuse them. Even if the corpses wanted to attack Mu Yu, they would misjudge Mu Yu's position. However, the mirror image formation didn't stop these corpses for long. After Meng Pa rushed into Mu Yu's mirror image formation, she had already discovered that something was wrong with the formation. The blue and green blood-red brilliance on her body suddenly exploded with her as the center, swallowing the formation patterns laid by Mu Yu again. "I've said it before, your array technique is useless in front of me," Meng Pa sneered. Mu Yu didn't expect to meet such a difficult opponent. Meng Po's cultivation was higher than his. Although she left the twins outside the twin corpse sea, she had 7 crossing calamity stage corpses. It was enough to give Mu Yu a headache. The Ghost Lord twins closed in on Mu Yu once again. Their palms were imbued with the power of 1,000 caddies as they clawed at Mu Yu's face. Mu Yu only felt a sharp gust of wind from the palms of the Ghost Lord twins. He barely managed to turn his face to the side. But at this moment, a devouring power came from the palms of the Ghost Lord twins, devouring the 100 Faces illusion array on Mu Yu's face. The 100 Faces illusion formation was broken. Mu Yu's disguise as Tian Xingzhou was seen through, revealing his true face. "TSK, what a young and handsome face. Old man, he's much more handsome than you." Meng Pa suddenly stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. "Old witch, you really make me feel disgusted." Mu Yu looked at Meng Pa with disgust. He quickly touched his face. Fortunately, only the 100 Faces illusion formation was broken. His face wasn't disfigured. Duke Meng was also surprised. "Where are you from? You're so young. You still have the mood to look up your ancestral records? Do you have a way to deal with this old witch's extreme devouring?" Mu Yu shouted. He turned around and dodged the attacks of the 3 crossing calamity stage cultivators. Duke Meng snorted. "Young man, it's impossible for you to defeat this old witch in the Twin Corpse Sea. The Twin Corpse Sea is a place of extreme Her extreme devouring will be very powerful here. It's basically impossible to defeat her. You have to leave this place. Leave this place? If I leave this place, I won't be able to escape. Mu Yu knew that there was another fantasy sound outside. Perhaps the fantasy sound had already passed the news to the Ghost Lord. The Ghost Lord was much more powerful than his twins. When the time came, it would be even harder for Mu Yu to escape from so many crossing calamity stage cultivators. Then you have to help me gather my body. As long as my body is intact, I can use extreme yang devouring to restrain this old witch, Duke Meng quickly said. Meng Po laughed sinisterly. Old man, you want to keep your body intact? I don't think you have a chance. As she spoke, she suddenly blasted the altar at the exit of the twin corpse sea with her extreme yin devouring body. The altar was forcibly shattered. In order to capture Mu Yu, this old witch had destroyed the exit as well. Before entering the twin corpse sea, Mengpa had already placed Duke Meng's soul and hands outside. Now that she had destroyed the exit, it could be said that she had cut off Mu Yu's only escape route and put an end to Duke Meng's interference. Damn it! Mu Yu's heart sank. Now that the exit was destroyed, it would be even harder for him to escape. Old witch, you're so cruel. Duke Meng spat. Mengpa laughed strangely. Don't worry. Once I capture this brat, Fantasy Sound will naturally repair the exit. For now, you should just obediently allow yourself to be captured. The extreme yin devouring's evil light blasted towards Mu Yu again. Mu Yu dodged it and landed behind Duke Meng. The evil light blasted towards Duke Meng's head, but to Mu Yu's surprise, Duke Meng actually opened his mouth and swallowed the evil light. That thing that could destroy all corpses was ineffective against Duke Meng. How are you fine? Mu Yu asked. If something were to happen to me, this vicious old witch would have already turned me into powder and sealed me away. Her extreme yin devouring can't hurt me, Duke Meng coldly said. What's so special about your body? Mu Yu quickly asked. My body has been tempered by the flames of life of 1,000 cultivators. My flames of life aren't afraid of these things. Duke Meng didn't hide anything. Mu Yu lightly snorted. The flames of life of 1,000 cultivators? Looks like your methods are quite ruthless. To a certain extent, the people from the Gate of Life and Death and the Gate of Hell were similar. They both had twins and liked to rely on killing to strengthen themselves. The flames of life were very powerful. For example, when Tian Ran burned her own life to save Mu Yu, she directly destroyed the soul technique of her 3 palaces. Who would have thought that Duke Meng would use the flames of life to temper his own body? I've never said that I'm a good person, Duke Meng coldly said. Mu Yu indifferently snorted. As for whether or not Duke Meng was a good person, he didn't want to judge anything. After all, in the cultivation world, killing people had become a normal thing. He also took revenge for the old mayor and Xianjingtang's family by massacring the entire city. However, Duke Meng's words reminded him of something. The thing that the land of extreme yin was most afraid of was living things. Everything in the world had a counterbalance, and there would always be something else to maintain the balance. He looked at the chaotic yin and yang flowing around his body, and a bold idea jumped into his mind. I can save you, but you have to help me. Mu Yu calmly used the formation to wrap Duke Meng's head and quickly fled behind. Meng Po and the Ghost Lord twins chased after him. Duke Meng raised his eyebrows. You trust someone from the Gate of Life and Death? People from the Gate of Life and Death and the Ghoul Gate were hated by most in the cultivation world. No one was willing to confide in them. If it weren't for their high cultivation and strength, which was equivalent to 2 people and extremely difficult to deal with, the cultivation world would have eradicated these 2 sects long ago. Mu Yu said, You want to leave this dark place, and I want to destroy the twin corpse sea. Right now we have to kill Mengpa first. Our goal is the same, isn't it? Alright, brat, if I can escape from here, I'll owe you my life in the future. Duke Meng said. Other than your hands, all of your limbs are here, right? Mu Yu turned around and slashed with his sword again. The sword chi turned into a formation and trapped Meng Po and the others. Although Meng Po destroyed the formation in the blink of an eye, Mu Yu had already escaped to a faraway place. However, no one noticed that when Mu Yu was escaping, the void rippled with every step he took. A cyan mark melted into the void and disappeared. That old witch sealed my body in different places in the Twin Corpse Sea. I won't die in the Twin Corpse Sea because of the ghost formation, but I'll definitely die outside. So you have to snatch my body back, Duke Ming said. His body had been sealed in the coffin by Meng Po. His legs were also sealed in different places. Your body has been tempered with an extremely strong flame of life, so you're not afraid of the Yin energy here. Then you have to lend me the life energy in your head, Mu Yu said. How do you want to use it? I'm a formation master. I know how to set up a formation. I need your head to be the foundation of the formation. You have to circulate your own life energy. You have to cooperate with me, Mu Yu explained. Meng Po attacked again. Mu Yu asked Duke Meng to block her again. The Twin Corpse Sea was boundless. There was no end in sight. The gate of hell had been passed down for hundreds of millions of people. As Mu Yu fled, he used his sword chi to cut up the ordinary corpses that came at him from all directions. These corpses weren't under Meng Po's control and could be easily cut up by Mu Yu. Kid, if the life energy in my head is exhausted, I'll be no different from the people here. I'll also be controlled by that old witch. Do you want me to die? Duke Meng shouted. I know what I'm doing. Before the life energy in your head is exhausted, I'll go and take back your body. You should know how to use the life energy in your body to make up for yourself. If you don't agree, you'll be trapped here for the rest of your life. What's the difference between life and death for you? Mu Yu said indifferently. Duke Meng's expression changed. Then, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine. But remember what you said. You have to get me out of this godforsaken place. I won't go back on my word. The formation pattern in Mu Yu's hand had already appeared. It covered Duke Meng's head. Duke Meng's head suddenly flowed with life energy and merged with Mu Yu's formation pattern. In fact, his Mu Ling also had life energy. However, after the Mu Ling mutated, it became very strange. Its life energy was no longer pure, so it could not control the corpses here. Duke Meng could not die in this place for dozens of years. His life energy must be very strong. Mu Yu used Duke Meng's head as the foundation to carve a simple spirit-gathering formation. He merged it with his sword energy. His sword energy suddenly emitted a strange flame. It was like the fire of life was burning. He immediately turned around and raised his sword energy without hesitation. The Ghost Lord twins were chasing after him. The Ghost Lord twins did not dodge. They raised their palms fearlessly, trying to block Mu Yu's sword energy. I told you, your attack is useless against us. Meng Po saw Mu Yu suddenly turn around and said with a sinister smile. However, her face suddenly froze. This was because the Ghost Lord twins' extreme Yin-devouring body did not devour Mu Yu's sword energy this time. On the contrary, it could not block Mu Yu's sword energy at all. It was directly cut in half by Mu Yu. Meng Po was shocked. Only now did she notice the abnormality in Duke Meng's head. She shouted, Old man, are you tired of living? Do you want to die together with me? Die together? You think too highly of yourself. Mu Yu's sword energy changed direction. The sword energy with the green fire of life energy turned to Meng Po. Meng Po screamed and immediately grabbed a skeleton from the side and threw it at Mu Yu. She quickly fell down. Chapter 996. However, Mu Yu had no intention of killing Meng Po right now. With his powerful attack, the vitality in Duke Meng's head would not last more than 3 sword strikes. He kicked away the other 2 tribulation-passing stage skeletons and rushed towards the skeletons that sealed Meng Gong's body. Bastard! Mengpa realized that Mu Yu did not chase after her. She knew that Mu Yu was just bluffing. When she realized what was going on, Mu Yu was already close to the coffin that sealed Duke Meng's body. She let out a heart-wrenching scream. The scream was so bitter that Mu Yu's ears felt numb. As Mengpa screamed, more and more skeletons came from all directions. These skeletons rushed toward Mu Yu. Some skeletons even tried to cover Duke Meng's coffin with their own bodies. However, how could these skeletons stop Mu Yu? Mu Yu's left hand roared and emitted a blue array pattern which transformed into a majestic thunder dragon. The thunder dragon roared in the air and rushed towards the corpses below. The corpses that were in its way were suddenly shattered into pieces by the thunder dragon. Mu Yu's left hand roared and released a blue array pattern which turned into a majestic thunder dragon. However, Mengpa took advantage of the moment when Mu Yu paused to cast the spell. She jumped in front of Mu Yu and stood on Duke Meng's coffin to protect it. "You want to take back your body? Dream on." Mengpa snorted and raised the ghost hairpin in her hand. "Old man, you dare to bet your life on this kid? If you protect your vitality well, I won't be able to do anything to you for the rest of my life. However, if you use your vitality like this kid, how long do you think your head can last?" Mengpo obviously realized the flaw in Mu Yu's sword chi. The reason why she could not kill Duke Meng for so many years was because of the powerful vitality in Duke Meng's body. As long as the vitality existed, the twin corpse C would not be able to do anything to him. However, if Mu Yu did this, Duke Meng would be no different from an ordinary skeleton. At that time, she would be able to control him. "You don't have to worry about that." Meng Gong gritted his teeth and said. He hated Mengpa to the core. Now that there was finally an outsider who could help him escape, he had to take a gamble. "Then let's see how many swords you can use. Go." Mengpa shouted angrily and quickly retreated. The skeletons around her surged towards Mu Yu. The Ghost Lord twins had already reunited and were rushing towards Mu Yu. As long as Mu Yu exhausted Duke Meng's vitality, he would not be able to cause any more trouble. Boom! Mu Yu swung her sword again. Wherever the sword went, the corpses of the twins were chopped into pieces like tofu. Even the twins of the Ghost Lord were no exception. The sword chi arrived in the blink of an eye and slashed towards Mengpo. Mengpo's face changed. She didn't expect that the corpses would be so weak that they didn't even have the strength to resist. She didn't dare to meet the life force, but now that the sword chi had firmly locked onto her body, she couldn't dodge. She could only use her ghost hairpin to meet Mu Yu's sword chi. Gotcha! Meng Po's ghost hairpin was also a gloomy magic weapon. Could not resist at all. It was directly cut into pieces by Mu Yu's sword. This magic weapon was not like the twin corpse C, which could be reunited. It was completely destroyed. Meng Po's expression changed greatly. Her magic weapon was destroyed, and she was also implicated. At this time, the sword chi was still swinging towards her, but the power was much weaker. She swung a lot of blood in front of her. Only then did she offset Mu Yu's second sword. "Boy, come again if you have the ability," Mengpa shouted fiercely. In fact, her heart was palpitating. Duke Meng was her nemesis. She did not dare to block these two swords. However, as long as she could block them, the initiative would be in her hands again. Duke Meng also began to panic. He shouted, "I can only force you to use one more sword. If you miss the third sword, we will all die." "I know what I'm doing." Mu Yu continued to rush towards Mengpa. The cyan mark under his feet merged into the void array and disappeared. Mengpa saw Mu Yu rushing over again. She was shocked. She could only retreat again, keeping a distance from Mu Yu. Now that she did not have the ghost hairpin, the other corpses could not stop Mu Yu. As long as she kept a distance, even if Mu Yu swung his sword a third time, she could deal with it. However, Mu Yu only chased for a moment. Suddenly, he stopped in midair. "What? You're at your wit's end?" Mengpa carefully retreated a few hundred meters again. Then, she coldly snorted. Chase? I don't have the time to chase an old witch like you. Mu Yu revealed a faint smile. Mengpo wanted to retort, but suddenly, her expression changed. She felt that something was wrong. The void array around her suddenly lit up with countless cyan light spots. These light spots were about 300 meters away from her. Normally, they would not affect her. However, these cyan light spots flickered with a faint mysterious aura. Then, a thin cyan light ray quickly spread out. All the light spots were connected, forming a cyan cage. Mengpo was trapped in the cage. There were a total of 81 light spots. They shone with a powerful aura from different directions. At this moment, Mu Yu was standing on top of the cage. The head of Duke Meng in his hand exuded a powerful aura of life. It merged into the cage's runes. How is this possible? When did this happen? Mengpo was shocked. She could feel the aura coming from the cage. Without hesitation, she stretched out her skinny fingers. 2 rays of green and red light appeared. Then, she attacked the cage that trapped her. However, the cage only emitted a ray of colorful light. It immediately dissolved Meng Po's attack. Duke Meng looked at the strange cage that suddenly appeared in surprise. Even he did not know how Mu Yu did it. Who are you? Duke Meng could not help but ask. I already said that I am an array master. Is it so hard to understand? Mu Yu had been running away. However, that was actually intentional. His escape route was calculated. Every step he took would leave a footprint in the void. He used 2 rays of sword chi. The first one was to test the waters. The second one was to force Mengpo to use his method to evade. Then, he forced Mengpo into the array that he had set up. Mengpo fell into the cage that was full of life. She began to panic. She was most afraid of this kind of thing. It would cause her great harm. She did not hesitate to shout. She commanded all the corpses to attack the green cage. She was prepared to use thousands of corpses to deplete the life energy of the cage. However, Mu Yu had already raised the shadow clone sword in his hand again. You have no chance. Mu Yu looked coldly at Mengpo. The green sword chi once again bloomed with the fire of life. A dazzling brilliance soared into the sky. The powerful aura intimidated all the corpses. Heaven's Sword 9 summoning heavenly lightning fall. All the light spots in the cage turned from green to blue. Lightning overflowed and filled the sky. The 81 light spots suddenly turned into 81 lightning balls. These lightning balls spun in the air and formed a whirlpool. The whirlpool spun faster and faster. Finally, it elongated and formed a blue lightning sword. How can this be? How can there be 81 swords? Mengpo looked at the 81 lightning swords that surrounded her in horror. The life energy in the lightning swords was extremely vigorous. She was clearly frightened. My sword is not just a simple sword. Mu Yu casually waved her hand, and the 81 thunder swords suddenly began to stab towards Mengpo. They were swift and tyrannical, and carried with them the aura of life. Then, they covered all of Mengpo's escape routes. I don't believe it! Mengpo shouted. All the blood turned into a blood-colored barrier in front of her. She wanted to block the 81 lightning swords that filled the sky. However, the lightning swords smashed into her blood-colored barrier. The barrier was electrocuted and shattered. Mengpo's eyes widened in horror. Her entire body had been pierced through by the 81 lightning swords. She looked like a beehive. Mengpo's mouth squirmed twice. She wanted to say something. However, she did not succeed. Her throat was also pierced. The life energy entered Mengpo's body. Mu Yu once again waved his sword chi and blasted Mengpo's body into pieces. This time, Mengpo's body did not reassemble. You actually killed her? Duke Meng looked at all of this in horror. His old-fashioned and stiff face revealed an extremely excited expression. His originally cold eyes flashed with excitement and hatred. Back then, he was killed by Mengpo and was trapped in this dark place for dozens of years. His life was worse than death. Now that he finally got his revenge, how could he not be excited? Mu Yu let out a long sigh. He did not expect to spend so much effort to kill Mengpo. This went against his original plan. He originally wanted to let Duke Meng kill Mengpo. Unfortunately, the people from the Gate of Hell were too cunning. They had already prepared for this, causing Mu Yu to go through a lot of trouble. Mu Yu dispersed the array on Duke Meng's head. He grabbed the coffin and broke the restriction placed on it by Mengpo. Duke Meng's head quickly returned to his body. At the same time, 2 legs flew out from the corpse in the distance and automatically reattached themselves. Strictly speaking, Duke Meng was also a member of the Twin Corpse C. No matter how badly his body was destroyed, it would be reassembled by the ghost array. This was why Mengpa did not crush Duke Meng into powder. That would be a waste of effort. Without Mengpo's control, the corpses no longer had their original agility and returned to their instincts. Even the Ghost Lord twins were no longer a threat to Mu Yu and were directly split apart by his sword. At this moment, Meng Gong let out a long shout and all the corpses stopped, no longer blindly attacking Mu Yu. "How do you control the corpses here?" Mu Yu asked casually. "I am a member of the Gate of Life and Death." Duke Meng snorted. The Gate of Life and Death controlled the corpses. Duke Meng naturally had his own technique. However, Duke Meng still did not have his hands. Mengpa had left his hands outside. Chapter 997. Although Mengpa had been killed by Mu Yu, she had destroyed the exit and sealed off the Twin Corpse C. This was equivalent to leaving Mu Yu no way out. Duke Meng stretched his neck, making creaking sounds. His neck had been broken by Mengpo, but the ghost boundary of the Twin Corpse C had reconstructed his body. It was all thanks to the existence of such a powerful ghost boundary. Otherwise, even if he was a member of the Gate of Life and Death, he wouldn't have survived after being dismembered. Don't worry. Even if the exit is destroyed, it will reappear at the beginning of every month. According to the level of Yin Qi here, I think we'll be able to leave in 23 days. Duke Meng calmly said. After being trapped here for several decades, Duke Meng had always been thinking about how to get out. Naturally, he had also figured out the characteristics of the Twin Corpse C. However, Mu Yu couldn't wait for 23 days. He had to find a way to leave this place as soon as possible. Before entering, he had set up a teleportation array outside. As long as he crushed the jade pendant, he would be able to teleport himself out of the Gate of Hell. However, the ghost boundary of the Twin Corpse C was extremely overbearing. It was different from the ghost boundary outside of the Gate of Hell. The Yin Qi here cut off the connection between the jade pendant and the teleportation array, so he couldn't use the teleportation array to leave this place. Mu Yu said in a deep voice, "Do you really think you'll be able to get out in 23 days? Do you think the people of the Gate of Hell won't notice that something happened to Mengpa? Or do you plan to be trapped here for the rest of your life?" Duke Meng's expression froze. He naturally didn't want to stay in this dark place for the rest of his life. Just now, Mengpa had been killed, and he hadn't completely vented the anger in his heart. Now that he calmed down and thought about it, Mu Yu was right. If he didn't get out as soon as possible, he wouldn't be Ghost Lord's opponent even if the stone platform was repaired. "Which sect are you from?" Duke Meng had been trapped here all this time. He had no idea what the name Mu Yu meant in the world of cultivators. Mu Yu sat cross-legged in the void and began to adjust his breath. The battle with the 8 masters of the Crossing Calamity stage had consumed a lot of his spiritual energy. After letting the black and white spiritual energy in his dantian pass through, he asked, "Is this important?" Duke Meng sneered. "Don't think that I don't know that you self-proclaimed righteous sects are scolding us for being unorthodox. If we can find a way out, I think you'll definitely fall out with us." Mu Yu looked indifferently at Duke Meng, who had lost his hands. "I said I would take you out and I will. I don't care about the righteous sects in your eyes." A hint of surprise appeared on Meng Gong's face. You think so? Mu Yu silently ran the falling dust mantra in his heart. Then he said, "Cut the crap. Is there a way to get out of here quickly?" Duke Meng also sat cross-legged in the void. He merged the life energy in his body into his head to make up for the loss of life energy in his head. Then he said, "There is a hidden death energy in your body. Although you haven't used it, if I want to leave here, I have to use it to cover up my twin aura." Mu Yu knew this. When he first returned to the past, he helped Duke Meng escape. However, after Mu Ling obtained the power of slaughter, some of his aura completely changed. But he still couldn't do anything to the twin corpses here. The ghost boundary here was too strange. "I will help you," Mu Yu said simply. Although Duke Meng came from the gate of life and death and killed countless people, he was still a man of his word. He knew how to be grateful. In this aspect, he was much better than the people from the gate of hell. Duke Meng looked at Mu Yu. He thought Mu Yu would kill him after killing Mengpu. He didn't expect Mu Yu to be so easy to talk to. There are 2 ways to get out. The first is to leave through the stone platform in 23 days. The second is very troublesome. No one can do it. We can only use the first method. After the stone platform appears, they won't dare to come in recklessly unless they are like the old witch who refined the blood of the dead. That's not something anyone from the gate of hell can do. So we still have a chance. Duke Meng said slowly. "Let's talk about the second method." Mu Yu said. "This is the land of extreme yin. It belongs to the extreme of yin qi. Naturally, yin qi needs to be restrained by yang qi. However, no matter how strong my flame of life is, it can only protect me. It can't break this place. If you want to break this ghost boundary, you will need an extremely strong yang qi to restrain it. I don't think you have that ability," Duke Meng said. "Strong yang qi?" Mu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He had a very bold idea. Others might not be able to do it, but Mu Yu had a very dangerous force in his body. It was the black and white spiritual energy. The black and white spiritual energy was made up of pure life qi and death qi. It maintained a stable balance. Normally, it would constantly transform Mu Yu's body. Once Mu Yu was injured, his body would be strengthened. If the black and white spiritual energy broke the balance, it would have a very terrifying devouring power. That was where his killing power came from. However, the black and white spiritual energy was too violent. If it left his body, it would break the balance and devour without restraint. Even Mu Yu couldn't completely control it. Back then, he had to use Mu Ling's sword to barely control it after spending a lot of energy. Yin Qi needs to be restrained by Yang Qi. Yin and Yang are in balance. Why do my chaos Yin and Yang coexist so harmoniously? Mu Yu's heart skipped a beat. Little Black and Little White drilled out of his hand and swam around happily. They played with each other, similar to the black and white spiritual energy in his body. However, Mu Yu knew that if either Little Black or Little White went too far away, the other would definitely go berserk. Can I also make the black and white spiritual energy start to devour each other when they are separated, but also restrain each other? Mu Yu's fingertips moved, and a green spiritual energy circulated in front of him. After the black and white spiritual energy left his body in a balanced state, it was no different from ordinary spiritual energy. Mu Yu's spiritual energy had always been green. However, once the black and white spiritual energy separated, it would lead to unpredictable consequences. The black spiritual energy would devour everything, and the white spiritual energy would stimulate all the potential of everything before being assimilated. Normally, Mu Yu wouldn't dare to try it. Now that he was trapped here, and as long as he destroyed the twin corpses, he would be able to severely damage the gate of hell. Therefore, he decided to take the risk and try it again. This is the only way. Mu Yu clasped his hands together and then slowly opened them. Cyan's spiritual power gathered in his palms and formed a vortex. The vortex spun faster and faster. Then, it suddenly turned into two different types of spiritual power, one black and one white. The two types of spiritual power began to circulate. The black and white spiritual power still maintained a balanced state and did not separate. "Kid, what are you doing?" Duke Meng frowned. Mu Yu didn't answer him, but continued to focus on the black and white spiritual energy. As long as he forcefully separated the black and white spiritual energy, the next thing would be troublesome. "Let's risk it." Mu Yu gritted his teeth, and the black and white spiritual energy were forcefully separated. The white spiritual energy gathered in his left palm, and the black spiritual energy gathered in his right palm. Suddenly, two completely different and terrifying auras were released from his two palms. "This is..." Duke Meng's face suddenly changed, because he smelled danger from the black and white spiritual energy. "How did your spiritual energy become like this?" Duke Meng cried out in alarm. He suddenly stood up and took a few steps back. Whether it was the black spiritual energy or the white spiritual energy, he was quite afraid of both. Mu Yu focused all his attention on the black and white spiritual energy in his hand. He couldn't be disturbed during this process, or else it would be very difficult to reverse the situation if he made any mistake. This time, he didn't have Mu Ling and the Yao Ceiling Pagoda's powerful so close, yet worlds apart to help him deal with the life and death spiritual energy. Balance. Balance. As long as the life and death spiritual energy are kept at the same level, they won't go out of control. Mu Yu's heart was in his throat, and he could even clearly feel his own nervous heartbeat. If he wanted to keep the black and white spiritual energy in a state of balance, he could barely do it, but once the black and white spiritual energy began to devour each other, the balance would be broken. If the balance was broken, the life and death spiritual energy would continue to devour each other, and even he wouldn't be able to survive. Mu Yu had already landed on one of the skeletons. These skeletons were controlled by Duke Meng and didn't move at all. Even when Mu Yu flew over, they didn't resist. At this time, Mu Yu's hands were already imprinted on the skeleton. The black and white spiritual energy touched the skeleton. The black spiritual energy began to devour one side of the skeleton, while the white spiritual energy fully unleashed the potential of the other side of the skeleton. After that, it assimilated into the white spiritual energy. When Duke Meng saw that Mu Yu wanted to use a strange method to deal with the skeletons, he coldly snorted and said, "Brat, don't waste your energy. The twin corpses here are protected by a powerful spiritual ghost array. Even if you destroy them, they will be restored to their original state. With your strength, you won't be able to destroy any of the skeletons." Although the black and white spiritual energy in Mu Yu's hands looked very intimidating, he had been trapped in the twin corpse sea for so many years. He had already understood everything here and understood the power of the twin corpse sea better than anyone else. The people of the Gate of Hell created such a place of extreme and perfectly protected the skeletons of the twin corpse sea. It was said that even great ascension stage cultivators couldn't destroy any of the skeletons here, let alone Mu Yu. Mu Yu only calmly replied, "Don't disturb me or we will both die." The black and white spiritual energy in his hands was slowly decomposed. Mu Yu paid full attention to the result of the black and white spiritual energy devouring. He didn't want to let either side have the slightest advantage. This kind of devouring had to be done in a balanced manner. Slowly, the entire skeleton was decomposed by the black and white spiritual energy. During this process, Mu Yu was very careful. He didn't even dare to shake his hands. He had no choice but to do this because the people of the Gate of Hell dared to place the twin corpse sea here. They must have a powerful method to protect it. And one of Mu Yu's most powerful methods was the black and white spiritual energy in his body. Chapter 998. Duke Meng stared at Mu Yu in shock. The twin of the gate of hell that couldn't be destroyed had been completely devoured by the black and white spiritual energy. This kind of devouring was too terrifying. It wasn't something that the twin corpse see's powerful ghost boundary could recover from. At first, he didn't believe that Mu Yu could do this. But now, he finally understood how terrifying this young man who had suddenly barged into the twin corpse sea was. Mu Yu didn't pay attention to Duke Meng's reaction. The twin he devoured was only at the nascent soul stage. After the black and white spiritual energy devoured the corpse, he clearly felt that the black and white spiritual energy seemed to have become stronger. He pondered for a moment and asked, if the twin is destroyed, what will happen to the people of the gate of hell? Duke Meng gradually calmed down. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of mockery. If the twin is destroyed, then the people of the gate of hell will have to suffer the twin's revenge. Revenge? Mu Yu nodded thoughtfully. Ghost Great Wolf was a nascent soul stage member of the Gate of Hell. He belonged to the 39th Ghost Battalion. This time, his mission was to be stationed in Black Bamboo City and lead the self-cultivators to fight against Yuman. His mission naturally wasn't to fight to the death with Yuman. His superiors had already arranged that once the war broke out, regardless of whether it was the self-cultivators or Yuman who died, he had to collect the souls of the dead. The Gate of Hell was one of the 8 gates. In name, they were supposed to lead the self-cultivators to defeat Yuman. But in reality, the people of the Gate of Hell had a clear division of labor. The twin was responsible for killing Yuman, and they were responsible for collecting the souls of the dead on the battlefield with the Ghost Soul Stone. Yesterday, Black Bamboo City had just fought with the Yumeng Devil Clan. The fight lasted for 2 hours. Ghost Great Wolf had collected 200 souls, most of which belonged to the Yumeng Devil Clan. Only 9 of them were human souls. Yesterday's battle was still a complete victory for the human race. Now, the self-cultivators' morale was high. Yuman's souls are not as good as human souls. 30 of them are not even comparable to the soul of a cultivator. How cheap! Ghost Great Wolf spat in disdain. He glanced at his twin beside him. The twins were also looking at him expressionlessly. Yesterday, his twin had performed heroically on the battlefield. He was very satisfied with the twins. To be honest, Gui de Hound, I still miss the old you. Ghost Great Wolf revealed a proud smile. Ghost Great Hound was the name of his twin. Unfortunately, at the moment of life and death, it was Ghost Great Wolf who had survived. Ghost Great Hound's soul was still looking at Ghost Great Wolf expressionlessly. Ghost Great Wolf didn't care because the twins' consciousness was being suppressed. They only knew how to carry out orders and couldn't understand what he was saying. I like war. When there is war, there will be souls. Not bad. Although Ghost Great Wolf did not understand the true meaning of this war, the cultivation method of the people from the Gate of Hell was to refine ghosts. The more ghosts they collected, the stronger they would become. What was different from the past was that this time, the people from the Gate of Hell had the right to collect souls. They didn't need to be looked down upon by cultivators. Behind Ghost Great Wolf were 30 Jindan period cultivators. These cultivators were all from other sects, and he was in charge of leading them to fight against Yuman. At this moment, these Jindan period cultivators were looking at Ghost Great Wolf with reverence. Yesterday, Ghost Great Wolf's twin had displayed his might on the battlefield. Everyone saw it clearly. Greetings, Lord. At this moment, a figure flashed by from afar. A middle-aged man from the Jindan period respectfully knelt on one knee in front of Ghost Great Wolf and greeted him. Pangarong, what about the matter I asked you about? Ghost Great Wolf asked lazily. Lord, I have already captured 40 mortals. They are waiting for your orders. Pangarong said humbly. Bring them up. Yes. Pangarong immediately left. Following that, the 40 mortals were thrown onto the empty ground in front of Ghost Great Wolf with faces full of fear. These mortals were of all ages and genders. They were originally farmers from the nearby villages. Because of the war, they fled to Black Bamboo City to seek refuge. They never thought that they would be directly captured by Panggaorong. All of you kneel down and listen to your lord's orders. Panggaorong shouted. The pressure of the Jindan period engulfed the mortals. These mortals couldn't withstand it. They all knelt on the ground in a panic, and didn't even dare to raise their heads. Ghost Great Wolf stood up in satisfaction. He walked among these trembling mortals and came to the side of a brawny man. You stand up, Ghost Great Wolf said coldly. The brawny man had a tan face. With one look, one could tell that he was an honest farmer who had been exposed to the wind and rain all year round. When he heard Ghost Great Wolf's words, he didn't dare to resist and hurriedly stood up. Ghost Great Wolf nodded slightly. Not bad. Your soul seems to be pretty good. Then he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the brawny man's neck. With a twist, the brawny man's neck was broken. The brawny man breathed his last and fell to the ground. My good brother, you can nourish yourself now. Ghost Great Wolf waved his hands at his twins, and the twins immediately rushed towards the burly man. Ghost Chi enveloped the burly man's body, and the originally invisible soul of the burly man was instantly revealed. He looked at Ghost Great Wolf's twins in horror, and before he could even scream, he was torn into pieces by the twins and sucked into their bodies. Lord, please spare our lives. Don't kill us. All the mortals were scared out of their wits. They hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. They hoped that these high and mighty immortal masters would let them go. The self-cultivators at the side looked on coldly. In the eyes of self-cultivators, the lives of mortals weren't worth mentioning. Even if there were some self-cultivators who felt that Ghost Great Wolf's methods were cruel, they didn't dare to say anything. After all, they were all assigned to be Ghost Great Wolf's subordinates. They didn't dare to disobey his orders. As long as they could kill Yaman and obtain soul points to exchange for rewards, the deaths of a few mortals were insignificant. Ghost Great Wolf glanced at the self-cultivators who were watching. He felt a wave of satisfaction in his heart. Before the war between Yaman and the human race started, he didn't dare to kill people openly. But now, the self-cultivators all believed in the leadership of the Eight Gate. Therefore, when he killed a few mortals, everyone felt that it was insignificant. Enjoy the souls of these mortals. Although their souls aren't as useful as the self-cultivators, they're still pretty good. Ghost Great Wolf said to the expressionless twins with an evil smile. But at this moment, he suddenly noticed a strange scene. The twins' originally calm gaze suddenly moved. Ghost Great Wolf sized up the twins. He thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. But when he took a closer look, he realized that the twins' eyes actually had a trace of clarity. It was as if they were gradually recovering their consciousness. How is this possible? Ghost Great Wolf was shocked. He and the twins were connected. He could clearly feel that he suddenly couldn't suppress the twins' consciousness. And at this moment, the twins were gradually breaking free from his control. Impossible. Ghost Great Wolf didn't understand why his twins were acting so strangely. Ghost Chi immediately surged out from his body and enveloped his twins, wanting to subdue them. However, a soul power surged out from the twins and bounced off his Ghost Chi. I've actually revived? The twins' consciousness had completely recovered. Their souls were no longer under Ghost Great Wolf's control. The moment they saw Ghost Great Wolf, their eyes were filled with hatred. Ghost Great Wolf, you've controlled my body for so many years. It's time for me to take over, the twins coldly shouted. The twins of the Gate of Hell hated each other. The one who was killed had a deep hatred for the other. After the twins recovered their consciousness, the first thing they wanted to do was to take revenge. You're only a soul now. How can you fight me? Ghost Great Wolf roared. But he also understood that although the twins were only a soul, their cultivation was actually the same. This was the strength of the cultivation techniques of the people of the Gate of Hell. Therefore, the twins weren't afraid of Ghost Great Wolf. The twin cackled. Your biggest mistake was feeding me 30 souls yesterday. This time, I'm going to take control of your body. The twins had already pounced towards Ghost Great Wolf. Ghost Great Wolf was also unwilling to wait for death. He immediately released his ghost energy and the two devils started fighting. Pang Gaorong and the rest of the self-cultivators were all stunned. No one would have thought that the awe-inspiring Ghost Dafeng would suddenly have an internal conflict with the twins that he was so proud of. Furthermore, the twins were actually able to firmly suppress Ghost Dafeng. I won't let you have your way. Ghost Great Wolf roared in anger. He broke free and landed beside Pang Gaorong. With a punch, he exploded Pang Gaorong's head. The pitiful Pang Gaorong was originally feeling pleased with himself for helping Ghost Great Wolf capture the mortals. He didn't think that before he could react, he would be killed by Ghost Great Wolf. After Ghost Great Wolf extracted Pang Gaorong's soul, he directly fused it into his body. At the same time, he took out a ghost streamer. The aura on his body became stronger. However, he still couldn't win against the twins. He retreated again and charged towards the other self-cultivators who were watching. Those Jindan period cultivators were scared out of their wits when they saw the blood on the ground. They couldn't care less about the others anymore. They all fled in all directions. A few of the slower ones lost their lives in Ghost Great Wolf's hands and became sacrifices to boost Ghost Great Wolf's strength. Damn it. It's still not enough. Ghost Great Wolf's heart was filled with regret. Yesterday, in order to make his twins stronger so that it would be easier for him to kill Yuman, he made the twins devour souls. Their techniques from the gate of hell, no matter if the twins devoured souls or he devoured souls, they would all be transferred to each other's body. This would allow the two's cultivation to increase to the same level. However, this required time. At this moment, the twins had yet to completely transfer the power they devoured to Ghost Great Wolf. The twins' cultivation was already higher than Ghost Great Wolf's. Ghost Great Wolf never thought that his twins would undergo such a mutation. For so many years, the twins had been under his control. Only when a certain person from the gate of hell's body was destroyed, would the twins' resuscitation. However, this was on the premise that there was a problem with the body. If he was perfectly fine, why did the twins wake up? He really couldn't understand. However, the twins were already charging towards him. Their strength was originally at the same level. Furthermore, the twins had devoured the soul sacrifice that Ghost Great Wolf had carefully selected yesterday. They had long surpassed him. He was instantly choked by his own twins and couldn't move. Why? What's the problem? Ghost Great Wolf was furious. He wanted to resist, but the twins didn't give him a chance to. Their strength was originally at the same level. However, because the twins had devoured a lot of souls yesterday, their cultivation was higher than Ghost Great Wolf's. Suddenly, the air was filled with ghostly aura. The fight between the two caused all the plants within a radius of a few hundred meters to wither. The Aurus Core stage cultivators had already fled the area in fear, while the mortals had all lost their lives under the ghostly fog. Bang! Ghost Great Wolf was sent flying backwards. You can die now. Chapter 999. Gui Dalong's head was separated from his body, and he died in an instant. However, his soul broke out from the top of his head and floated in mid-air. People from the gate of hell wouldn't die so easily. Even if their physical bodies were destroyed, they could still survive for a while as a soul. As long as they could find a suitable body in a short period of time, they would be able to live on again. However, there were many times when people from the gate of hell wouldn't survive so easily. This was because once their physical bodies were destroyed, the twins would resuscitation. The twins wouldn't let each other go so easily. Gui Dalong, stop. Now is not the time for internal strife. Gui Dalong's soul held back his shock and shouted angrily. Is that so? I feel that this is the most appropriate time. Gui Delong fiercely pounced towards Gui Delong. The two nascent soul-stage souls immediately tangled together in the air. The surroundings were shrouded in ghostly chi and the entire sky was filled with ghostly wails and howls. Gui Delong never thought that he would be so unlucky. His twin corpse that was thrown into the twin corpse sea just happened to be chosen by Mu Yu. In the twin corpse sea, after the black and white spiritual energy devoured the skeleton in front of him, Mu Yu still didn't dare to be careless. This was because he had to make the black and white spiritual energy in his hands extremely powerful. During the entire devouring process, Mu Yu was very careful. He didn't dare to let the black and white spiritual energy devour even a little bit of the skeleton. Otherwise, it would cause the black and white spiritual energy to lose balance and he wouldn't be able to control it. After devouring the skeleton, Mu Yu merged the black and white spiritual energy back together. It gradually turned into a green spiritual energy and disappeared into his palm. It turned into a pure spiritual energy that filled his meridians. He was surprised to find that the spiritual energy that he had used up was slightly replenished. It seems like my idea wasn't wrong. No matter how powerful the ghost boundary is, it can't defeat my black and white spiritual energy. Mu Yu said thoughtfully. As for the unlucky skeleton in front of him, it didn't appear again. This meant that Mu Yu had successfully destroyed the twin corpse. Duke Meng looked at Mu Yu in shock and couldn't help but ask, "What method did you use? How can it completely destroy the skeletons here?" Duke Meng had been here for a long time, and he was very familiar with the skeletons here. Even if they were smashed into pieces, they would reassemble. This was how the Gate of Hell protected its own people, but Mu Yu had broken this common sense. It was completely unreasonable. I naturally have my own methods. There's no need to tell you. Mu Yu didn't want to explain anything. Seeing Mu Yu's indifferent attitude, Duke Meng didn't dare to say anything. At this time, he was also a skeleton. He had consumed a lot of vitality and hadn't fully recovered yet. If they really fought, he wouldn't be a match for Mu Yu. Thinking of this, he jumped back a little, not wanting to get too close to Mu Yu. Mu Yu said indifferently, "Do you people from the Gate of Life and Death not trust your companions?" Duke Meng was quite embarrassed by Mu Yu's words, but he still said, "I have to be careful." Mu Yu didn't care about Duke Meng's attitude. He thought of something and asked, "What do you mean by revenge?" Duke Meng composed himself and then said, "If the twin corpse of the people from the Gate of Hell is destroyed, the twin soul in the Gate of Hell will resonate. They may fight or they may temporarily compromise. This depends on the relationship between the people from the Gate of Hell and the twin soul. It varies from person to person, but most of them will fight among themselves." Fight among themselves? That's what I want to see the most. Mu Yu pondered. Mu Yu was very careful when he devoured. He had to ensure that the whole process didn't go out of control, so it took him almost an hour to devour a corpse. There were thousands of corpses here, and Mu Yu couldn't devour them one by one. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to devour them all even if he wanted to. He turned his gaze to the Ghost Lord twins and the other 6 tribulation stage corpses. It seemed that he had to destroy these corpses first. There are thousands of corpses here. They are the corpses of the twins from the Gate of Hell who have been here for tens of thousands of years. Why are there only 7 tribulation stage corpses? Mu Yu asked, puzzled. Duke Meng explained, "It's impossible for corpses to preserve their strength forever. Once the people from the Gate of Hell outside die, the corpses here will gradually dissipate and turn into corpses without cultivation. There are only 8 tribulation stage cultivators in the Gate of Hell now. Since Mengpu is dead, there are only 7 left." "I see. Forget it, I'll deal with these 7 twins first. As for that so-called Ghost Lord, let's see if you like the surprise I've prepared for you." Mu Yu walked towards the Ghost Lord twins again. The Ghost Lord twins were also under the control of Duke Meng, so they didn't attack Muyu. Beside the bridge of helplessness in the gate of hell, a ghastly figure stood there. This person's aura was incomparably cold, like an ice block that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. No matter who looked at him, they would be able to feel the bone-chilling coldness from his body. It was as if their entire soul would be frozen. This person was the Ghost Lord from the Gate of Hell. His cultivation was at the 9th heavenly layer of the tribulation stage. He was an expert who was half a step into the Great Ascension stage, Ghost Cold. There were 2 people standing next to Ghost Lord. One was the fantasy sound at the 4th heavenly layer of the tribulation stage, and the other was the ghost and shadow at the 5th heavenly layer of the tribulation stage. Fantasy sound respectfully lowered his head and said, "Ghost Lord, Mengpa has already gone in to capture that person." Ghost Lord coldly said, "Have you investigated the identity of the person who entered the Twin Corpse Sea?" Fantasy sound said, "That person is wearing the clothes of the Stargate. He claims to be Tian Xingzhou from the Stargate." Tian Xingzhou? Tian Xingzhou wouldn't come to the Gate of Hell for no reason. You have all been deceived. This person must be Muyu's formation. I didn't expect the news from the Ghost Realm's child to be true. Muyu really came here. Ghost Lord narrowed his eyes. His eyes looked like cold hooks. It was as if anyone's soul would be taken away by these cold hooks in an instant. Fantasy Sound's expression changed slightly. He quickly said, "Ghost Lord, please forgive this subordinate's ignorance." Ghost Lord coldly snorted, then asked, "How long has Mengpa been in there?" Fantasy Sound said, "Almost 2 hours. She also destroyed the exit. It seems that she intends to trap Muyu inside to prevent Muyu from escaping before Ghost Lord arrives." Ghost and Shadow on the side said, "Ghost Lord, the Twin Corpse Sea can't even be broken by a Great Ascension stage cultivator, let alone a Crossing Tribulation stage cultivator. We don't need to worry about anything. Duke Meng has already taken measures against Duke Meng under our reminder. She doesn't need to worry about Duke Meng. She can also use Extreme Een to control the twins. Muyu won't be able to escape this time." Ghost Lord nodded slightly. "That's for the best. We can't let Muyu enter and leave our territory as he pleases." Gui Mingzi continued to ask, "Ghost Lord, should we inform the people of the Sanchong Palace?" Ghost Lord sneered, "Not yet. Wait until Mengpa captures Muyu. I'll personally take Muyu to the Sanchong Palace to see the Lord." However, at this moment, Ghost Lord's expression suddenly changed. "What's wrong?" Fantasy Sound and Ghost and Shadow were slightly stunned. "Not good, the Twin Corpse Sea is mutating." Ghost Lord was furious. He could clearly feel the twins in his body gradually resuscitation. They even began to stir, wanting to fight for control of the body with him. "Repair the Twin Corpse Sea's passage." A black gas appeared in Ghost Lord's hand, and his figure was already rushing toward the Bridge of Helplessness. However, his figure was only halfway there when he suddenly stopped. A trace of panic appeared on his face, and he immediately sat cross-legged on the ground. At the same time, the twins in his body had already broken free of his control and wanted to drill out of his body. Fantasy Sound and Ghost and Shadow looked at each other. They didn't understand why Ghost Lord, who was already half a step into the great vehicle stage, would suddenly have such an abnormal situation. Ghost and Shadow stepped forward and asked, "Ghost Lord, what's wrong with you?" However, Ghost Lord didn't respond. The veins on his face bulged, as if he was desperately trembling with someone. A monstrous ghost aura emerged from his body, instantly covering him. The powerful aura forced Ghost and Shadow and Fantasy Sound to retreat. "Lord Ghost Lord, what happened?" Fantasy Sound asked in surprise. Her demonic eyes revealed a puzzled expression. Ghost and Shadow wanted to approach Ghost Lord's ghost aura, but Ghost Lord's strength was far above his, so he couldn't get close. He pondered for a moment and asked, "Fantasy Sound, How long will it take to repair the bridge of helplessness to the twin corpse? Mengpe has always been in charge of the bridge of helplessness. If I were to repair it, it would take at least 6 hours. Fantasy Sound immediately said. Hurry up and repair it. Muyu did something to the twin corpse. There's a problem with the twins. Ghost Lord's sinister voice sounded from the thick ghost fog. A problem with the twins? Fantasy Sound and Ghost and Shadow looked at each other in shock. Inside the twin corpse, Duke Meng was already quite shocked. Muyu had once again completely destroyed a twin, and this time, it was the twin of the gate of hell. Where did such a terrifying person come from? Duke Meng's mind was filled with a myriad of thoughts. He didn't even dare to approach Muyu, for fear that he would be directly devoured by the black and white spiritual energy in Muyu's hands. Muyu slowly devoured the Ghost Lord twins. He was surprised to find that after devouring the Ghost Lord twins, the black and white spiritual energy had merged into one. It had actually gathered into an incomparably large amount of pure spiritual energy in his hands. This spiritual energy was the most primitive form of spiritual energy, without any impurities. It could be completely absorbed into Mu Yu's body to refine his body and strengthen his cultivation. If he could refine this spiritual energy, then Mu Yu believed that his cultivation would definitely rise to another level. Without any hesitation, Mu Yu began to absorb this powerful spiritual energy into his body. He began to turn it into his own body and began to cultivate as if there was no one around him. Duke Meng saw that Mu Yu was actually cultivating as if nothing had happened, and a trace of strangeness flashed through his heart. He understood his own identity. He was a member of the Gate of Life and Death. Just like the Gate of Hell, he was spurned by everyone in the cultivation world. Their cooperation was only temporary. Once this young man's cultivation rose again, perhaps he, a member of the Gate of Life and Death, who had lost both his hands, would be dispensable. At that time, it would be as easy as flipping his hand for Mu Yu to kill him. Chapter 1000. Duke Meng was hesitant. He could kill 1,000 people to extract the fire of life to temper his body, which showed that he was not a benevolent person. Now Mu Yu was cultivating in front of him without a trace of vigilance. In this case, as long as he intervened, he would definitely be able to seriously injure or even kill him. But he also had his own principles of doing things. Mu Yu helped him get rid of the control of Mengpe, which was a rebirth for him. Although he didn't have a good heart, he was a person who knew how to repay kindness. He didn't like to owe people kindness. Duke Meng's eyes flashed with a strange light, then he snorted coldly, walked to the side and sat down again. Mu Yu had been covered by the majestic and powerful blue spirit power. If it was compared to water, he originally just stripped a drop of water from his body and disassembled it into black and white spirit power, but after swallowing the Ghost Lord twins who were half a step into the Deshang stage, this drop of water had become a huge pond. Mu Yu was equivalent to refining the essence of a master who was half a step into the Deshang stage into pure spirit power for cultivation. He sat in the air, and the meridians in his body were filled with majestic spirit power. This spirit power made his body full of strength in an instant, and the spirit power that had been consumed had been completely restored. An hour later, the cultivation of the 5th layer of the crossing tribulation stage spread out from his body and swept out, making all the corpses tremble. Hey! It's a pity that I only improved by 1 layer. Mu Yu touched his chin and sighed. If people knew what he was thinking, they would have already scolded him. How could the strength of the crossing tribulation stage be so easy to improve? This guy was a typical example of taking advantage of others. But in fact, this kind of thing was normal for Mu Yu, because his abnormal physique of the 5 elements was wood and lacking 4 attributes, there was no barrier to cultivation. The heavenly Tao had its own plans. Mu Yu had a strong physique for cultivation, so he was destined to die young. There were gains and losses. He was just lucky enough to be chosen by Gomang to survive. Duke Meng looked at Mu Yu in surprise. Seeing that Mu Yu's cultivation had skyrocketed after swallowing the Ghost Lord twins, his heart was already set off a storm. He was already quite afraid of the two words, Mu Yu, in his heart. What kind of person is this? How could there be such a terrible person in the cultivation world? Mu Yu pondered for a moment and began to devour again. She carefully spent an hour to devour the other Crossing Calamity stage twin and turned it into a mass of pure spiritual power. Here. Mu Yu wrapped the refined spirit power in a formation pattern and handed it to Duke Meng. Duke Meng was stunned. He looked at the majestic spirit power in disbelief. In the cultivation world, spirit power was the most basic thing for everyone to improve their cultivation. Even the people of the life and death sect were no exception. In the past, there was the existence of the Inchi ghost array here, so he couldn't do anything to these corpses. But Mu Yu used a powerful method to refine the corpses and wanted to give it to him. Duke Meng asked suspiciously, "Are you really willing to give this pure spirit power to me?" If he could refine this spirit power, he would definitely be able to recover the losses of the past few decades. This was a treasure that no one could refuse. He didn't expect Mu Yu to be willing to give it away. Mu Yu said indifferently, "What's wrong? Is it strange?" Duke Meng's face was gloomy, and then he said, "You know, I almost wanted to kill you because I thought you would kill me after this." Mu Yu asked calmly, "Then why didn't you do it?" Duke Meng's face froze and he snorted heavily. He didn't want to speak out his thoughts. "I know you're not that kind of person." Mu Yu smiled. "You trust me that much? I'm a member of the life and death sect, a devil who kills without blinking an eye." Duke Meng frowned. "So what? Since you took the risk to give me the fire of life, why wouldn't I trust you? Trust is given to each other. If you don't trust someone, why would you ask others to trust you?" Mu Yu looked at this matter very lightly. In the end, it was because Duke Meng saved his life when he went back to the past. He helped Duke Meng escape, and Duke Meng helped Mu Yu escape from the gate of hell, so Mu Yu thought that this person was worthy of trust. Duke Meng said coldly, "I don't like the word trust, I just don't like to repay kindness with enmity. If it wasn't for trust, he wouldn't have been trapped in this dark place by Mengpu for decades, so he hated this so-called trust. However, the trust that Mu Yu gave him made him feel very uncomfortable. In short, if we want to leave here, we have to help each other. You have to recover your lost spiritual energy, then we can deal with the people from the gate of hell together." Mu Yu said simply. Duke Meng hesitated for a moment, then a dark green aura came out of his body and received the spiritual energy that Mu Yu gave him. This kind of thing was too tempting, and he couldn't refuse. Mu Yu looked at the remaining 5 Crossing Calamity stage corpses again. He knew that Ghost Lord and the others must be waiting outside. Although Mu Yu could destroy the original bodies of the twins, the Crossing Calamity stage people of the Gate of Hell were not weak Japanese people. It wouldn't make sense for them to be killed so easily by their own twins. At most, these old Japanese people would lose half of their combat power. Losing half of their combat power was still very powerful for Mu Yu. He needed Duke Meng's help. Mu Yu spent a few more hours refining the remaining Crossing Calamity stage corpses into pure spiritual energy. However, he didn't plan to use this spiritual energy directly for cultivation, because he had more important things to do. He gathered all the spiritual energy and drew a spirit gathering array. He sealed all the spiritual energy and left it for others to use in the future. If he wanted to fight against the threefold palace, he couldn't rely on himself. Right now, he was lacking manpower. Zhuge Shaoxing had just stepped into the Crossing Calamity stage. As a formation master, his combat power was incomparably strong. He needed to improve his cultivation as soon as possible. Other than Zhuge Shaoxing, there was also Tian Ran. If Tian Ran could refine the spiritual energy, she would benefit a lot. Duke Meng had also completely absorbed the spiritual energy that Mu Yu gave him. However, he still lacked an arm and a soul, so it was difficult for him to use his true strength. I've already killed Mengpu. Where are you going to find a twin? You people from the Gate of Life and Death also need twins, right? Mu Yu asked. Duke Meng silently flew to a corner of the twin corpse sea and disappeared into the mountain of corpses. After a while, he reappeared. This time, there was a gloomy-looking corpse following behind him. No cultivation? Mu Yu looked at the corpse in shock. This corpse didn't have any aura of cultivation. It was obvious that it was outside the gate of hell and should be dead. Duke Meng said, "There are countless corpses here. Among them, I found a corpse that fits all the requirements to become my twin. Because the twins with cultivation are controlled by others, I can't refine it. Therefore, I can only find one without cultivation to fool that vicious old woman. For the past few years, I've been using the Yin energy here to cultivate it. As long as I bring it out, I'll be able to get my hands and soul back. With the spiritual energy you just gave me, I'll be able to quickly recover my cultivation." Mu Yu nodded thoughtfully. He then asked, "You have the fire of life in your body, so it belongs to the Yang attribute. Twins belong to the Yin attribute. Is this why you were with Mengpa?" "That's right. Only by combining Yin and Yang can I unleash greater power." Duke Meng didn't hide anything. Mu Yu looked up at the gloomy sky. The twin corpse sea was covered in a hazy ghostly fog. He didn't know how high it was. Duke Meng was silent for a moment. He then said, "The twin corpse sea's ghost boundary has a boundary. It's 10,000 meters above us. You can try to use your spiritual energy to melt this boundary. If you can, then we'll be able to escape." Then it's simple. Mu Yu hadn't encountered anything that the black and white spiritual energy couldn't do anything to. After refining all the tribulation passing stage twins' corpses in the gate of hell, he had a better control over his spiritual energy. As long as he wasn't disturbed when separating the black and white spiritual energy, there wouldn't be any problems. He and Duke Meng jumped high into the air and headed for the boundary of the ghost boundary. On the bridge of helplessness, Ghost Lord's face was so gloomy that water could be wrung out of it. His twin had broken free from his control. For him, this was a matter of life and death. This was because the twin's strength was the same as his. If it wasn't for the fact that he was stronger and killed the twin at the critical moment, he would have been the one to die. "Once I catch the person who entered the twin corpse sea, I'll definitely tear you to pieces." Ghost Lord gritted his teeth and said in an incomparably cold voice. Now that he had lost his twin, it was equivalent to losing an arm to the people of the Gate of Hell. Although he still had his strength, when facing cultivators of the same realm as him, the advantage of having twins was gone. He was still in the final stages of recovery. In order to prevent the twins from harming him, he could only kill them. However, the twins were closely related to his body. After killing the twins' souls, he also suffered heavy injuries. Right now, he could only display the strength of an 8th stage tribulation passing stage cultivator. It wasn't just him. Ghost and Shadow and Fantasy Sound were also entangled by the twins. They were also sitting cross-legged on the side and engaged in a difficult battle with the twins. To the people of the Devil's Gate, fighting the twins was like fighting another version of themselves. This was because all the cultivation methods of the twins were the same as their own. Wanting to easily defeat them was an extremely difficult matter. Fantasy Sound was originally going to repair the passage into the twin corpse sea. However, halfway through, the twins began to resist, and she had no choice but to stop. Thus, the passage hadn't been repaired yet. If the passage between the Bridge of Helplessness and the twin corpse sea wasn't repaired, it would only be repaired at the beginning of the month. Right now, there were still many days until the beginning of the month. "Wait until I recover. I'll definitely kill my way into the Twin Corpse Sea and kill you. Ghost Lord roared angrily. However, a cold voice echoed in the surroundings. Chapter 1001. The cyan sword light instantly illuminated the entire cliff as it slashed down towards Ghost Lord. Ghost Lord angrily roared. He endured the injuries in his body and stood up. Ghost Chi suddenly rolled up and surged towards Mu Yu's sword light. However, Mu Yu's figure flashed and landed at the entrance of the passage. At this time, Ghost and Shadow and Fantasy Sound were also barely able to suppress their twin souls. They stood up and glared at Mu Yu. Ghost Lord Mengpo Shi. Fantasy Sound saw Mu Yu appear alone and didn't see Mengpo. He understood that something bad had happened to Mengpo. You are Mu Yu? Ghost Lord looked coldly at Mu Yu, as if he wanted to use his sharp eyes to pierce through Mu Yu's disguise. However, Mu Yu's array skills had already reached the acme of perfection. No matter how powerful Ghost Lord was, he couldn't see through Mu Yu's disguise. This old man's name is Tian Xingzhou. Mu Yu pretended to speak in a righteous tone. Regardless of whether the other party believed him or not, he wouldn't reveal his identity. You actually dare to disguise yourself as Tian Xingzhou? Do you think you can fool me? Although Ghost Lord couldn't see through Mu Yu's illusion, he wasn't stupid. This was because people from other sects couldn't casually barge into the gate of Hell's Twin Corpse Sea. Mu Yu didn't think much of it and continued, "This old man is here to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and destroy the gate of Hell." He thought it was funny when he said it himself. But no matter what, the next plan needed to be carried out under the identity of Tian Xingzhou. Ghost Lord glared venomously at Mu Yu. "You still dare to act mysterious. I don't care who you are. Since you dared to come to the gate of Hell's territory and behave so atrociously, I will definitely kill you." Monstrous Ghost Chi emerged from the Ghost Lord's body. The Ghost Lord, who was half a step into the Deshang stage, lost the souls of the twins. At this time, his aura was only at the 9th heavenly layer of crossing tribulation. The Ghost and Shadow and the Fantasy Sound both had the cultivation of the 5th heavenly layer of crossing tribulation. Mu Yu's cultivation had already reached the 5th heaven of the crossing tribulation realm, but if they really fought with the Ghost Lord's cultivation and the other two people, it was enough to suppress Mu Yu. Ha! What a joke! The gate of Hell is a place where I can come and go as I please. What can you do to me? Mu Yu didn't intend to fight with Ghost Lord at all. There was no chance of winning if he fought with Ghost Lord and the other two in the territory of the gate of Hell. He turned around without hesitation and rushed outside. The sword light flashed, and the powerful sword chi split the passage in an instant. The whole passage was torn apart, and he jumped from the ground to the sky. Chase after him. Ghost Lord already hated Mu Yu to the bone because the twins were destroyed. He chased after him without hesitation. The Fantasy Sound and the Ghost and Shadow also endured the injuries on their bodies and followed closely behind. The three of them were annoyed by Mu Yu's provocation, but they didn't notice that after they left, a figure without hands suddenly appeared on the bridge of helplessness. This kid really dares to provoke Ghost Lord alone. How bold! Duke Meng couldn't help but shake his head. Even he didn't dare to have the idea of provoking the three of them. Then, he looked at the human crutch made by Meng Pu on the bridge of helplessness and the soul that was imprisoned by the blood. He snorted coldly, and the blood that imprisoned the soul directly turned into a bloody mist. The soul quickly floated to him and merged into his body. The human crutch separated again and flew to his shoulder. His shoulder made a bone-creaking sound. The zombie technique of the Gate of Life and Death was quite powerful. In the blink of an eye, he had recovered to his original state. Finally, I can leave this place. Duke Meng stretched his muscles and bones. Then, he walked to the stone basin filled with Meng Po's soup. He flicked his finger, and the blood in the basin was flicked into the air and sprinkled on the bridge of helplessness. Before I leave, I still have to find the people in the gate of hell. Duke Meng's aura suddenly rose, and the aura of the fifth sky of the tribulation stage was emitted. At this time, Mu Yu lured Ghost Lord, the fantasy sound, and the ghost and shadow away. Then, no one in the gate of hell could stop him. After Mu Yu left the gate of hell, he quickly fled into the distance without saying a word. His speed was extremely fast, and the Big Dipper constellation formation under his feet had been pushed to the limit. Because Ghost Lord's strength was still above his, he didn't have a good chance of winning against the three of them alone. Ghost Lord's eyes were already filled with anger. After such a big change, all the twins of the tribulation stage Ghost Lords were destroyed. Now, he only wanted to catch Mu Yu and destroy Mu Yu first. Still want to escape? Ghost Lord roared, and monstrous ghost chi swept out. The whole sky was like a ghost god descending to the world. Ghost chi filled the sky, surging and roaring, and then formed a black skull tens of thousands of feet long. Ghost chi slashed down from the sky, turning into ghost alls that bared their fangs and brandished their claws, and shot toward Mu Yu. Green runes flickered around Mu Yu's body, flashing left and right. The ghost alls slammed into the ground, riddling the ground with thousands of holes. Countless bottomless pits appeared below, and even destroyed a mountain range. The ground within 1,000 miles seemed to have experienced an earthquake. The sound of the ground cracking was deafening, and it was shocking. Ghost Lord's strength was obvious. Shadow Sword Chi rushed straight to the sky, crushing the ghost chi in the sky, and turned into a vortex. This vortex kept moving with Mu Yu's movement. Then, tens of thousands of feet of sword chi slashed down from the sky, and blasted behind him. Ghost Lord snorted coldly. Unlike the others, he didn't dodge at all. Instead, he took out a ghost flag. The ghost flag was full of vengeful spirits, and a huge abyss mouth appeared. It directly swallowed Mu Yu's sword chi. "This old devil is really powerful," Mu Yu secretly exclaimed. Although his heaven sword was powerful, it was still slightly at a disadvantage in front of the ghost flag that could exert the Mahayana stage's domain ability. Ghost Lord's strength was stronger than his. Now, he didn't have the open ruins cauldron or other domain magic treasures to protect himself. It was still too difficult for him to fight Ghost Lord head-on. At this time, Ghost and Shadow and Fantasy Sound attacked one after another. A ghost staff from Ghost and Shadow's hand pointed horizontally at Mu Yu. At the front of this ghost staff was a withered hand. The ghost hand seemed to come alive, and with a sharp sound, it swept up waves of air and grabbed at Mu Yu. 8 trigrams formation patterns surged under Mu Yu's feet again, and he tilted his body to avoid the ghost hand's attack. However, Fantasy Sound had already summoned a bewitching pink ghost at this time. These ghosts made soul-stirring sounds, and they were captivating, making people's minds ripple. However, Mu Yu's heart was like a boulder, and he wasn't confused by these demonic sounds. Sword Chi swept out again, and directly crushed the ghosts that pounced over. Ghost Lord roared, and the ghost fog in the sky turned into hurricanes. These hurricanes fell from the sky as if they were connected to heaven and earth. The hurricanes swept up an incomparably terrifying tearing force. Wherever they went, everything withered and was destroyed. No life could survive under the hurricanes. Mu Yu did not dare to continue fighting. She had no choice but to set up a series of water ripples to form the mirror image array. At the same time, the golden so close, yet worlds apart array appeared behind her. Unfortunately, the array was instantly shattered by the Ghost Lord's powerful hurricane. Even so, Mu Yu took the opportunity to flee even further away. "I'm almost there. Strange, where is Tianran?" As soon as Mu Yu left the gate of hell, he had transmitted the formation to Tianran. Logically speaking, Tianran should be waiting outside to meet him. However, Tianran unexpectedly appeared at this time. "You must die." Ghost Lord and the other two instantly caught up. Powerful ghost techniques howled as they surged toward Muyu. Their attacks were ruthless, and they swore to kill Muyu. However, Muyu's body and mind sank. His entire body plummeted. At the same time, he formed a powerful hand seal and shot downward. Below him was a towering mountain. A golden teleportation array immediately appeared on the mountain peak. "You want to catch me? You're too inexperienced." Muyu stepped into the teleportation array. The mysterious runes of the teleportation array flashed, and he disappeared. A fixed teleportation array had no delay. Ghost Lord couldn't stop Muyu from leaving. Damn it! Ghost Lord didn't expect Muyu to set up a fixed teleportation array here. He could only forcibly disperse the powerful ghost chi hurricane. Otherwise, once the teleportation array was destroyed by his ghost technique, he wouldn't be able to track Muyu's whereabouts. Almost as soon as Muyu left, Ghost Lord and the other two also landed in the teleportation array. The runes of the teleportation array lit up and the three of them disappeared. 100 miles outside the Stargate, Zhuge Shaoxing was sitting cross-legged in an inconspicuous mountain stream. He had been waiting here for 2 days. His attention was always on the green wood Muyu gave him. At this time, he suddenly opened his eyes. The green wood in his hand had taken root and sprouted. "It seems that they're ready to act." Zhuge Shaoxing's eyes flashed. A jade pendant appeared in his hand. It was the teleportation jade pendant invented by Muyu. He immediately crushed it without hesitation. Unlike the teleportation array, which could teleport people immediately, the teleportation jade pendant took Zhuge Shaoxing and disappeared after a slight delay. When Zhuge Shaoxing appeared again, he was already on the third mountain peak of the Stargate. Zhuge Shaoxing appeared in an inconspicuous room. There was no one around the room. It was a dirty and abandoned house. According to Tian Jianqing, no one would come here. Therefore, when the fluctuation of the commander teleportation array sounded, no one was alerted. The teleportation array under Zhuge Shaoxing's feet flashed for a while and then disappeared without a trace. Zhuge Shaoxing had already used the 100 Faces illusion array to transform himself into Tian Hoyang. He then reached out his hand and felt around the ground. His expression changed. Lines of formation appeared in his hand. Then, a topographic map of the Stargate appeared on the ground. Muyu is actually so well prepared. This is really surprising, Zhuge Shaoxing exclaimed. Muyu had already snuck into the Stargate a while ago. He had set up countless formations in the Stargate, including several commander teleportation arrays. Just now, Zhuge Shaoxing had crushed the jade pendant to sneak in. Although the protective formation of the Stargate was powerful, it was full of loopholes in front of Muyu. It couldn't stop the commander teleportation array. The map engraved with array patterns on the ground recorded the location of the heavenly starry gate and Zhuge Shaoxing's current position. He remembered Muyu's instructions and understood what his mission was. Chapter 1002. On the surface, Stargate looked normal. All the disciples were doing their jobs. Those who were on duty were patrolling the area. Those who weren't on duty were cultivating. Because many elders and disciples of Stargate had to go to various cities to help the self-cultivators fight against Yuman, there weren't many people in the sect. Tian Jingxin was in charge of guarding the fourth mountain. He and another elder took turns to guard the core of Stargate's formation. Each of them took turns for a month. The sun was extremely bright and beautiful. The fourth divine peak was filled with red flowers and green willows, full of vitality. Tian Jingxin sat in the pavilion and looked down at the scenery of the heavenly starry sect. In the distance, there were mountain ranges and clouds lingering around them. Those were the other divine mountains floating in midair. From time to time, there would be people from the heavenly starry sect flying across the sky and landing on the other divine mountains. Very few people from the heavenly starry sect would come to the fourth divine peak. This place could be said to be a forbidden area of the sect. Aside from Yu Mingjun, who was responsible for maintaining the array formation, the rest of the people who could come to the fourth divine peak were all respected elders of the heavenly starry sect or sect Master Tian Yuehen. Normally, they would come to visit the ancestor of the heavenly starry sect, so Yu Mingjun didn't dare to neglect them. The self-cultivator world is really unstable now. But it's really interesting. Tian Jingxin looked at the figures in the distance and thought about the war between humans and human. He revealed a disdainful smile. Although he was only in the spirit-severing stage, he knew a lot of the high-level secrets of Stargate because he guarded the core formation of the mountain guarding formation all year round. He also knew what this war meant. Of course, he wouldn't say it out loud. The threefold palace had their own reasons for doing things. It wasn't something he could casually guess. He just had to do his job well. But at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly appeared on the fourth mountain peak. Tian Jingxin took a closer look. It was the other tribulation passing stage patriarch of Stargate, Tian Hoyang. Strange, why is Patriarch Tian Hoyang back? Isn't he in Wuqiu City? Tian Jingxin was very confused, but he still hurried out of the pavilion and knelt on the ground respectfully. Disciple greets ancestor Hoyang. This Tian Hoyang was naturally Zhuge Shaoxing in disguise. Although his cultivation was not as good as Tian Hoyang's, as the leader of the Array faction, his strength was not as simple as the crossing tribulation stage. His 100 faces illusory array was also very powerful. In addition, his cultivation was at the crossing tribulation stage. With Tian Jingxin's cultivation, it was impossible for him to distinguish the real from the fake. Get up! Zhuge Shaoxing used the array technique to imitate Tian Hoyang's voice. Tian Hoyang had frequently led the human race to kill Yuman, so many people had heard his voice. Zhuge Shaoxing had already sent people to use the array technique to record Tian Hoyang's appearance, voice, and habit. At this moment, his impersonation of Tian Hoyang was flawless. As long as he didn't meet anyone at the crossing tribulation stage, it would be very difficult for the other Stargate members to discover that he was a fake Tian Hoyang. Thank you, Patriarch. Tian Jingxin stood in place with a respectful expression. He didn't know why Tian Hoyang, who was supposed to go to Wuqiu City, suddenly returned to Stargate. However, the whereabouts of a crossing tribulation stage patriarch was not something he, a mere severed soul stage, could question. Even if he was in charge of guarding this place, he was not qualified to ask. Where's Senior Marshal Brother Xingzhou? Zhuge Shaoxing asked calmly. Tian Hoyang was Tian Xingzhou's junior marshal brother, so Zhuge Shaoxing knew this very well. Patriarch Hoyang, Patriarch Xingzhou is in closed-door cultivation. He ordered us not to disturb him, Tian Jingxin replied respectfully. Okay, I have something to talk to him about. You can go do your own things. Zhuge Shaoxing walked towards the top of the mountain with his head held high. However, Tian Jingxin hurriedly said, Patriarch Hoyang, Patriarch Xingzhou is in closed-door cultivation. You know his personality. A few days ago, Tian Xingzhou called a few women over to do something, but he suddenly sent them away. He said that he was going into closed-door cultivation and forbade others from entering. No one dared to disobey Tian Xingzhou's orders. Even Stargate's gate master, Tian Yuehen, had to be courteous to him. As the guard of this place, Tian Jingxin had to inform this Tian Hoyang of this matter. After all, people didn't like to be interrupted when they were in seclusion. Zhuge Shaoxing snorted. Of course I know Senior Marshal Brother Xingzhou is in closed-door cultivation. However, how can the matters of the threefold palace be delayed? Please forgive me, Patriarch. Tian Jingxin hurriedly lowered his head and didn't dare to speak again. Guard this place well. Don't let anyone else in. Zhuge Shaoxing was already walking towards Tian Xingzhou's residence. He already knew where Tian Xingzhou lived from the Stargate map left behind by Mu Yu. Yes, Tian Jingxin responded respectfully. Although he was a little confused about Tian Hoyang's sudden arrival, he didn't think too much about it. A crossing tribulation stage patriarch could come and go as he pleased. The dignity of a crossing tribulation stage patriarch was sacred and inviolable in Stargate. Although the fourth mountain was a forbidden area, it wasn't used to prohibit a crossing tribulation stage patriarch. Tian Jingxin didn't dare to ask about it. Zhuge Shaoxing quickly arrived at Tian Xingzhou's residence. He then pushed open the door and entered Tian Xingzhou's luxurious courtyard. Even Zhuge Shaoxing was amazed when he saw Tian Xingzhou's courtyard. This guy really knows how to enjoy life. His style of living is so extravagant. At this time, there was already a person sitting on a chair in the courtyard waiting for him with a confused look in his eyes. It was Tian Xingzhou, who had lost his mind and was being controlled by Mu Yu. When Tian Xingzhou saw Zhuge Shaoxing, he stood up from the chair and knelt down in front of Zhuge Shaoxing. He said respectfully, "Greetings, master." "My sect master, how did you do it?" Zhuge Shaoxing looked at Tian Xingzhou, who was kneeling in front of him. He couldn't help admiring his easygoing but worrisome sect master. Although Mu Yu didn't like others calling him sect master and treated Zhuge Shaoxing as an elder, Zhuge Shaoxing was quite respectful to Mu Yu. He didn't expect that Mu Yu could control Tian Xingzhou, who was in the seventh sky of the crossing calamity stage. In fact, Tian Xingzhou was extremely powerful. The seventh sky of the crossing calamity stage was not a joke. Even if Mu Yu wanted to subdue Tian Xingzhou quietly, it was almost impossible. Moreover, when two people in the crossing calamity stage fought, it would definitely alarm the whole Stargate. However, Tian Xingzhou was defeated by his own hobbies. For the sake of some men's desires, he even believed in Yu Mingjun, which gave Mu Yu a chance to make a move. Tian Xingzhou, I didn't expect you to have such a day." Zhuge Shaoxing had seen Tian Xingzhou once when he followed Tian Xingzhou to the Stargate to arrange the formation. At that time, Tian Xingzhou's cultivation was much higher than his. Zhuge Shaoxing didn't dare to have any disrespectful thoughts in front of Tian Xingzhou. But now, he couldn't help but sigh at the impermanence of the world. Now, Tian Xingzhou was like a servant kneeling in front of him, and he could completely control this person's life and death. "However, your Stargate almost destroyed my array faction. You only have yourself to blame for this." Zhuge Shaoxing naturally hated Stargate. Back then, the Stargate assisted the Talisman Grandmaster to almost destroy the array faction. Zhuge Shaoxing wouldn't easily forget this debt. When the Talisman Grandmaster launched the attack, Zhuge Shaoxing was only a body integration stage cultivator even though he was very powerful. He felt powerless in the face of Stargate. Now that his cultivation was no longer the same as before, he was here to collect his debt. Zhuge Shaoxing followed the method of controlling the soul formation that Mu Yu gave him. With a thought, Tian Xingzhou stood up and followed Zhuge Shaoxing out of the courtyard. Tian Jingxin, who was in the pavilion, was slightly surprised when he saw Tian Hoyang and Tian Xingzhou walking towards him from afar. "The patriarch has come out of seclusion?" Tian Jingxin hurriedly stood up and tidied his clothes. He didn't expect that Tian Hoyang, patriarch, would actually invite Tian Xingzhou out. This couldn't be delayed. Disciple greets the two patriarchs. Tian Jingxin hurriedly jumped out of the pavilion and respectfully knelt by the roadside to pay his respects. Facing the two patriarchs of Stargate, Tian Jingxin didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. "Get up. Junior brother Ho Yang and I are going to the main hall. Remember, don't let anyone cause trouble in the main hall." Tian Xingzhou, who was under the control of Zhuge Shaoxing, sternly shouted at Tian Jingxin. "Yes, disciple will keep it in mind," Tian Jingxin hurriedly replied. The palace at the top of the mountain was where the core formation of Stargate was located. Usually, Tian Xingzhou would occasionally wander around there. This was his habit. Tian Jingxin knew this, but he still felt that there was something strange about the patriarch in front of him. Strange, why does Patriarch Xingzhou feel that something is wrong? Tian Jingxin pondered. In the past, when he met Tian Xingzhou was like an unreachable giant that he had to look up to in awe. In front of Tian Xingzhou, Tian Jingxin felt like a drop in the ocean. But today, when he met the patriarch, who was like a god to the people of Stargate, didn't seem to have any spiritual energy fluctuations. He was just like an ordinary person. Could it be that the patriarch's cultivation has improved after a few days of secluded cultivation and reached another level? Tian Jingxin was envious. He wasn't a tribulation passing stage expert, so he didn't understand the tribulation passing stage. However, Tian Xingzhou was the faith of the people of Stargate. It was also because of his existence that the people of Stargate could do whatever they wanted in the cultivation world. Therefore, even if Tian Xingzhou looked like an ordinary person with no spiritual energy fluctuations, he didn't dare to question anything. Tian Xingzhou and Tian Hoyang gradually disappeared in front of him as they walked towards the top of the mountain. Only then did Tian Jingxin stand up and return to the pavilion. Zhuge Shaoxing walked all the way to the top of the mountain. He was no stranger to this path. The Sky Star Sect's array formation was once set up by the Array Heavenly Tao. As the sect master of the Array Heavenly Sect, Zhuge Shaoxing had followed the Array Heavenly Tao back then and was very familiar with the array formation here. Thus, he walked forward with ease. Along the way, when the elders who were guarding saw him and Tian Xingzhou, they all knelt down and saluted, not daring to say anything. The two quickly arrived at the palace where the core formation of Stargate was engraved. Zhuge Shaoxing looked at the familiar formation and felt a wave of emotions in his heart. I didn't expect to come here again. This core formation was personally set up by Formation Heavenly Tao, the founder of the Formation Heavenly Tao. It was extremely powerful. Seeing the founder's formation, Zhuge Shaoxing also felt nostalgic. Formation Heavenly Tao was his faith. However, Zhuge Shaoxing quickly put away his nostalgic expression. He remembered how the Formation Heavenly Tao was almost destroyed and felt a bit angry. This formation shouldn't be used in a place like this. Zhuge Shaoxing didn't pay attention to Tian Xingzhou. Instead, he turned his gaze to the mysterious formation runes in the center of the palace. He had already seen what Mu Yu did to this formation. At this moment, an invisible formation hidden in the core formation had already started to circulate. Stargate, you wanted to destroy the foundation of my Formation Heavenly Tao. Today, I will make you pay for it one by one. Chapter 1003. Two cultivators were walking in the lush forest. One of them was called Han Qi while the other was called Su Yu. Both of them were at the nascent soul stage. They came from the Water Moon sect and were a pair of Tao companions. The sect master of the Water Moon sect was at the body fusion stage. Although she was far from being comparable to the Eight Gates, she was still considered a mid-tier power. Han Qi looked to be around 40 years old. His expression was somewhat regretful as he looked at his surroundings. Soon after, he said, "What a pity. We still let that injured mystic rank water creature escape. As long as we kill him, we can obtain the soul points." They were cultivators who were stationed in the nearby Mi Bay city. They followed a severed soul expert from the Gate of Hell to fight against the Yuman. Just now, they were chasing after a heavily injured water Yuman. Unfortunately, when they reached this place, they suddenly lost track of the water Yuman. Su Yu was quite good-looking and was Han Qi's wife. She walked in front and called out, "Seventh brother, there's a pond here. If the water Yuman was able to disappear in this area, then it must have escaped in a place with water. The pond was definitely the best hiding place for the water Yuman. Han Chi and Su Yu quickly landed beside the pond in the forest. The pond was sparkling and there were mysterious ripples that were slightly undulating. Looking at the ripples on the water surface, the water Yuman must have jumped into this pond. Han Chi's face lit up. Killing a profound stage Yuman would give them 5 soul points. To them, 5 soul points were extremely important. Then how do we force the water Yuman out of the pond? Su Yu asked. Han Chi coldly snorted and said, that water Yuman is already heavily injured. It's definitely under the pond. Let's use our spiritual energy to evaporate this pond. If we can kill that water Yuman, we'll naturally obtain the soul points. As he spoke, Han Chi's nascent soul stage spiritual power condensed in his hand. This aura was condensed, vigorous and steady. With the cultivation of the nascent soul stage, not to mention a small pond, it was more than enough to destroy a forest within a radius of 50 meters. Su Yu said, "Seventh brother is really amazing. I'm afraid that he will break through to the out-of-body stage in the near future. I can't catch up with him." Han Chi smiled complacently. "Xiao Yu, you have to work hard. Last time, I used 500 soul points to exchange for a soul refining art from Lord Guisi at the Gate of Hell. I have to say that this soul refining art is of great help to my cultivation. I'll also teach you this soul refining art. You have to carefully ponder over it." Su Yu said enviously, "Lord Guisi has the cultivation of the spirit severing stage. His soul refining art is really incomparably powerful. Unfortunately, we're stuck at the 3rd layer of the cultivation technique. Wait until I have enough soul points to ask for his guidance." When Su Yu mentioned the spirit severing stage Guisi, her face was filled with reverence. "Let's kill this water Yuman first." Han Chi's palm condensed in his hand and slammed down towards the pond. In his opinion, his palm was extremely powerful and was enough to scatter the soul of the heavily injured water Yuman. 1. However, what Han Chi didn't expect was that when his spirit power touched the water surface suddenly lit up with a golden 8 trigrams formation pattern. His palm was directly repelled by the 8 trigrams formation pattern. At this moment, the 8 trigrams formation pattern on the water surface quickly circulated. A majestic aura came from the center of the pond. Following that, a figure suddenly appeared in the 8 trigrams formation. This is water Yuman's accomplice?" Han Chi exclaimed. Because Yuman's appearance was no different from a human if it didn't use its ability, when Han Chi first saw the person in the 8 trigrams formation, the first thing he thought of was water Yuman's backup. Water Yuman's accomplice? Mu Yu shrugged his shoulders noncommittally. This was a fixed transmission array that he had set up. He didn't expect to encounter 2 nascent soul stage cultivators. However, with the strength of these 2 people, they were still too inexperienced to destroy his transmission array. Su Yu said sternly, "You water Yuman, how dare you stir up trouble in our human territory? You're courting death." Mu Yu thought for a moment and pretended to be deep in thought. Then, he poured his crossing tribulation stage cultivation on Han Chi and Su Yu without reservation. He said, "Listen carefully. This old man is Tian Xingzhou, an elder of Stargate. The leader of the Gate of Hell, Ghost Cold, is chasing after this old man. If you want to live, leave this place quickly. Otherwise, it will be too late for you to get involved." Han Chi and Su Yu originally wanted to join forces to capture Mu Yu, but when Mu Yu's crossing tribulation stage aura spread out, they were so scared that they directly sat on the ground. They were extremely shocked. That was the aura of a crossing tribulation stage cultivator. When they fought with Yuman for a while, they had also seen 8 crossing tribulation stage cultivators. They didn't expect that they, who were only at the nascent soul stage, would actually threaten a crossing tribulation stage senior of Stargate. They were really courting death. Before the 2 of them could say anything, the transmission array on the surface of the pond behind them lit up again. Mu Yu didn't hesitate and disappeared into the forest in a flash. At this time, what made Han Chi and Su Yu even more terrified was that 3 ghostly auras flashed above the pond behind them. They were also at the crossing tribulation stage. Ghost Cold stepped on the shore and looked around, only to find that Mu Yu had disappeared. He glanced at Han Chi, who was paralyzed on the ground, and asked coldly, "Where did that person go?" When Han Chi saw that the other party was from the Gate of Hell, he recalled that he had obtained a cultivation method from the Gate of Hell from Master Gui Si, who was at the spirit severing stage. He didn't expect to meet a crossing tribulation stage cultivator at the Gate of Hell this time. If he could get a better cultivation method from a crossing tribulation stage cultivator at the Gate of Hell, he would really make a big profit. Han Chi wanted to curry favor with the big shot from the Gate of Hell, so he quickly knelt down and said respectfully, "Master, just now there was a person who claimed to be Elder Tian Xingzhou from Stargate. He is now heading over there. Master, I'm Han Chi from the Water Moon sect. I'm not interested in where you're from." Ghost Cold snorted coldly. His voice echoed in Han Chi's ears like ice that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years, making Han Chi shiver from the depths of his soul, and he abruptly swallowed his words. At this time, the light of the teleportation array had already lit up in the forest in front of them, attracting the attention of Ghost Cold and the others. Without saying anything, Ghost Cold directly turned into a ghost aura and rushed towards the teleportation array. Fantasy Sound glanced at Su Yu and discovered that Su Yu's soul was very powerful. At this time, she had just killed her own twin due to the resuscitation of the twins, so her strength was greatly reduced. He immediately raised his hand, and a red ghost fog sprang out and wrapped around Su Yu. Su Yu only let out a terrified scream, and then her body exploded into a bloody mist, which was all absorbed by Fantasy Sound. Even her soul couldn't escape. "Fantasy Sound, what are you waiting for?" Ghost and Shadow shouted from the front. After mercilessly killing Su Yu, Fantasy Sound didn't bother to care about Han Chi, who was already dumbfounded from fear. He turned around and rushed towards another teleportation array. "Little you, no. Little you." Chapter 1004. The Gate of Hell's Gate Master, Ghost Cold, and Fantasy Sound are chasing after Stargate's Tian Xingzhou? Why are the 8 gates already having internal strife? Stargate and the Gate of Hell actually turned against each other. Han Chi clenched his teeth and angrily looked at the disappearing ghost energy in the distance. However, he didn't dare to say anything in his heart, nor did he dare to stay for long. With tears in his eyes, he looked at the place where his wife had been paralyzed. Resentment welled up in his heart as he turned around and left the place. "People of the Gate of Hell, I didn't expect you to be so vicious. I, Han Chi, swear that I will never coexist with you." Han Chi decided to return to Mi Bay City and tell everyone the news that the Gate of Hell's Gate Master and 2 Tribulation Passing Stage Elders were chasing after Stargate's Tian Xingzhou. He wanted everyone to understand that Stargate and the Gate of Hell had fallen out. No matter whether this matter was true or not, he couldn't swallow this anger. However, Han Chi hadn't gone far when a figure suddenly appeared in front of Han Chi. Han Chi raised his head and was startled. The other party was actually a body integration stage cultivator. When he saw the Stargate logo on Long Chingan's clothes and saw Long Chingan's face, he suddenly exclaimed, "Lord Tian Jianqing?" Although Han Chi didn't recognize those tribulation passing stage experts, he had seen Tian Jianqing once in Wuqiu City. He didn't expect to meet Tian Jianqing here. Tian Jianqing was known as the #1 existence under the tribulation passing stage. Tian Jianqing's reputation was like thunder to the ears, second only to other tribulation passing stage experts. Tian Jianqing had been killed long ago. Now, the one controlling Tian Jianqing's body was Long Chingan. Even you would never have thought that Long Qing'an, who was supposed to be in Wuchu City, would appear here. Long Qing'an looked at Han Qi indifferently and calmly asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" It was as if Han Qi had found his savior. Without hesitation, he knelt down and cried, "Sir Tian Jianqing, bad news. Just now, I saw the gate of Hell trying to kill Tian Xingzhou from Stargate. The people of the Gate of Hell have gone too far. I'm worried that Sir Tian Xingzhou," with snot and tears, Han Qi recounted the events that had just transpired, adding oil and vinegar to the story. He even described the heaven traveling boat as if it was about to be killed by the 3 people from the ghost sect. The people from the Gate of Hell had killed his wife in front of him. He hated the people from the Gate of Hell to the core. At this moment, he hoped that the people from Stargate would find out about this and kill the Gate of Hell to avenge his wife. However, Long Qing'an only nodded slightly. Then, he said righteously, "The Gate of Hell's collusion with Yuman was exposed and they were discovered by our Stargate. Now, they want to destroy our Stargate. This is unacceptable. I'm here to deal with the people from the Gate of Hell. Hurry up and leave here. Spread the news and let more people know about the ugly faces of the people from the Gate of Hell." What? The people from the Gate of Hell are actually colluding with Yuman? Han Qi was shocked. The 8 gates were leading the cultivators to fight against Yuman. Just a few days ago, he and his wife had followed the people from the Gate of Hell to fight against Yuman. Now, Tian Jianqing was saying that the people from the Gate of Hell were colluding with Yuman? Han Qi wouldn't believe it if it was anyone else who dared to say this. However, the person who said this was the famous elder Tian Jianqing of Stargate. This was too convincing. He recalled the hurried expression of Tian Xingzhou and how the 3 people from the Gate of Hell had chased after him. In his heart, he believed Tian Jianqing's words. "Leave this place. Tell as many people as possible that the people from the Gate of Hell are colluding with Yuman. Tell the cultivators not to risk their lives for the people from the Gate of Hell. Also, tell them that Lord Tian Xingzhou asked you to spread the news. Do you understand?" Long Qing'an said solemnly. "Yes, Lord." Han Qi recovered from his shock. If someone else had said this, he wouldn't have believed it. However, since it came from Tian Jianqing, and with the hatred of killing his wife, he no longer had any doubts. He quickly stood up and left. Long Qing'an looked thoughtfully at Han Qi's back as he left. He went back to the pond where the teleportation formation had been set up and muttered to himself, "Mu Yu, oh Mu Yu, I finally understand what you're trying to do." Long Qing'an had taken Mu Yu to Stargate, but Mu Yu didn't allow him to follow. Therefore, he didn't know what Mu Yu was doing at Stargate. Long Qing'an pondered for a moment. Then, a blue jade pendant appeared in his hand. Waves of blue light came from the jade pendant. It actually contained a powerful domain power. The domain power on the blue jade pendant enveloped Long Qing'an. With a flash of blue light, Long Qing'an disappeared from the pond. On the 4th peak of Stargate, Tian Jingxin knelt on the ground again. He muttered in his heart. How could he have knelt 3 times in less than 2 hours? And this time, the person who appeared in front of him was the Gate Master of Stargate, Tian Yuehan. "Greetings, Gate Master," Tian Jingxin said respectfully. In his heart, he was also puzzled. Why were these tribulation-passing stage lords usually nowhere to be seen? Why were they appearing in groups today? He wondered in his heart. Could it be that something had happened? "Get up. How's everything here recently? No one has come, right?" Tian Yuehan asked casually. He was wearing a luxurious purple robe. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. He was over 50 years old. Tian Jingxin was in awe of his imposing manner. "Everything is fine here. To be honest, Gate Master, Patriarch Hoyang also came here just now." Tian Jingxin replied. "Hoyang Shishu also came here? Isn't he in charge of things in Wuqiu City? What is he doing here?" Tian Yuan frowned. Tian Jingxin shook his head. Gate Master, I don't know. I only know that after Patriarch Ho Yang came here, he went to find Patriarch Xingzhou. Then, the two patriarchs went straight to the main hall on the mountain peak. Isn't Martial Uncle Xingzhou in seclusion? Did he come out? Tian Yuan became more and more suspicious. He looked at the main hall on the mountain peak and walked toward it. Tian Jingxin looked at Tian Yuan's back in awe. He didn't dare to say anything. He was just a small guard. In the main hall on the fourth mountain peak, Zhuge Shaoxing was somewhat nervous. After all, they were in Stargate. If something went wrong, he would be in trouble. However, when he thought about destroying the Starry Sky sect, his heart was filled with anticipation. Tian Xingzhou was standing in place with a confused expression. Zhuge Shaoxing had already prepared everything Mu Yu asked him to do. He was just waiting for Mu Yu's signal. He pondered for a moment. Then, he pushed Tian Xingzhou to the edge of the core formation. Then, he quietly hid in a corner and cast an invisibility formation on himself. Zhuge Shaoxing looked at the green wood in his hand. The branches and leaves on the green wood had sprouted again. His eyes lit up. He knew that Mu Yu had given him new instructions. He immediately held his breath and stared. However, at this moment, a tribulation passing stage aura was approaching from outside the main hall. Zhuge Shaoxing's expression changed. Damn it. This aura is Tian Yuan. Zhuge Shaoxing didn't expect that the leader of Stargate would come here at this time. Tian Yuan's cultivation was in the fifth sky of the tribulation passing stage. He was much more powerful than Zhuge Shaoxing. He didn't expect that what he was afraid of would happen. In front of Tian Yuan, Zhuge Shaoxing wouldn't be able to protect himself if he was exposed. If Tian Yuan were to enter the hall and see the abnormal state of the heaven-traversing boat, his plan would most likely be disrupted. Zhuge Shaoxing had no choice but to withdraw the invisibility formation immediately. He walked out and bumped into Tian Yuan. Tian Yuan looked to be in his 50s. His strength was second only to Tian Xingzhou. However, as the leader, he had the supreme magic weapon of Stargate. If he used his full strength, he might be able to fight against someone in the ninth sky of the tribulation passing stage. Zhuge Shaoxing was sweating in his heart. He had just entered the tribulation passing stage a few months ago. How could he be Tian Yuan's opponent? However, he was the leader of the Array faction after all. He was experienced and knowledgeable. He calmed down quickly. Hoyang Shirshu? Aren't you stationed in Wuqiu City? Why are you back? Tian Yuan asked when he saw Zhuge Shaoxing, who was disguised as Tian Hoyang, come out of the main hall. Zhuge Shaoxing said calmly, Leader, I came back to look for senior brother Xingzhou. I have something important to discuss with him. Senior brother Xingzhou said that he had some enlightenment today, so he walked around. When he came to the main hall, he began to cultivate in the main hall. He asked me to wait for him outside. Why is senior brother Xingzhou cultivating in this place? Tian Yuan asked. He looked at Tian Hoyang carefully and found that Tian Hoyang's aura was a little strange. Although his appearance and temperament were similar, he felt that something was missing. Hoyang Shirshu, why do I feel that there's something wrong with you? Tian Yuan asked with burning eyes. Zhuge Shaoxing's heart trembled. His 100 Faces illusion formation was very powerful. Tian Yuan couldn't see through it. However, he wasn't the real Tian Hoyang after all. Tian Yuan was the leader of the Stargate. He was an expert in the fifth sky of the tribulation passing stage. He was very familiar with the real Tian Hoyang, unlike Tian Jingxin, who was only in the spirit severing stage. Zhuge Shaoxing's mind spun rapidly as he immediately said, I won't hide it from Sect Master. I just discovered that Elder Gui Qinchin of the Hellgate had killed a few of our Sky Star Sect's disciples in Wuqiu City. When I went to question him, he actually ignored the orders of the Threefold Palace and openly attacked me. I was accidentally injured by him, and have yet to fully recover. Tian Yuan frowned. How dare the people of the Gate of Hell do this? Zhuge Shaoxing continued. The people of the Gate of Hell have always been biased against the Stargate. You should know that when senior brother Xingzhou was young, he had a grudge against the current Ghost Lord of the Gate of Hell. I'm worried that the people of the Gate of Hell will do something to our Stargate in the future. We have to be careful. Tian Yuan nodded. I know that the people of the Gate of Hell aren't good people, but with the Sanchong Palace here, they won't dare to do anything. I just heard from Tian Jingxin that senior brother Xingzhou came here. I have something important to discuss with him. It's not the right time for him to announce that he's going into seclusion. The Sanchong Palace matters can't be delayed. After a pause, Tian Yuan suddenly looked at the back of Zhuge Xiaoxing's hand and asked, Hoyang Shishu, where did your soul imprint go? Soul imprint? Zhuge Xiaoxing was shocked. He never knew that Tian Hoyang had a soul imprint. Tian Yuan stretched out his left hand and said, Back then, the palace envoy of the Sanchong Palace placed a soul imprint on the back of all the tribulation passing stage cultivators' hands. When all of us tribulation passing stage cultivators gather together to discuss important matters, we use this as our identity imprint. After all, Mu Yu is an expert in disguise. In order to prevent him from sneaking in, why did your soul imprint disappear? Damn it! The Sanchong Palace actually had this trick up their sleeves? Chapter 1005. In a mountain stream, the runes flashed again. Mu Yu had already rushed out of the teleportation array. He leaped towards another teleportation array and disappeared into it. At this time, the first teleportation array lit up. Ghost Lord and the other two chased after him with murderous intent. Seeing Mu Yu disappear into another teleportation array, they immediately chased after him and disappeared into another teleportation array. Damn it! This brat came prepared. Ghost Lord shouted angrily as he chased. Mu Yu had set up countless teleportation arrays along the way. Generally speaking, the teleportation array's teleportation distance was limited. Therefore, Mu Yu had set up countless teleportation arrays along the way. If it was in the past, Ghost Lord would definitely be suspicious of this. However, now that the twins were destroyed, anger had already clouded his mind. He only wanted to catch Mu Yu and tear him into pieces to avenge the twins. We can't let him escape. Ghost Lord didn't care where these teleportation arrays led to. It didn't matter where these teleportation arrays led to. In the cultivation world, wherever he wanted to go, everyone had to retreat. In a forest, Ghost Lord and the other two appeared again. When they saw the forest that covered the sky, they immediately frowned. Ghost Lord, I keep feeling that something is wrong. If this person is Mu Yu, we won't be able to catch him in the forest, Ghost and Shadow said. By now, everyone knew that Mu Yu had Mu Yu's ability. Everyone knew that it would be very troublesome to fight Mu Yu in a place with many trees. Ghost Lord glanced around coldly and said, No matter what tricks he has up his sleeves, we must catch him. We can't let him escape. He remembered the Sanchong Palace's instructions. He definitely understood the importance of Mu Yu. As long as they captured Mu Yu, it would be a great merit to the Sanchong Palace. At this time, a strong teleportation array fluctuation came from not far away from the forest, attracting the three's attention. He escaped. Fantasy Sound said anxiously. Chase. Ghost Lord rushed over without hesitation and landed on the teleportation array in the blink of an eye. Ghost and Shadow and Fantasy Sound followed closely behind. The teleportation array lit up again, and the three disappeared into the forest. However, just as Ghost Lord and the other two left through the teleportation array, a figure suddenly appeared on the treetops above the teleportation array. It was Mu Yu. I've guided you to this point. I won't accompany you for the rest. Mu Yu snorted and destroyed the last teleportation array. He didn't leave through the last teleportation array at all. Instead, he hid in the forest and controlled the teleportation array to create an illusion. Before he came to the gate of hell, he had set up these teleportation arrays thousands of miles away and spent a lot of time. It was all to lure Ghost Lord and the others to the Stargate and provoke the conflict between the Stargate and the Gate of Hell. Only then could he kill all the people from the Gate of Hell and destroy the foundation of the Gate of Hell. Sect Master, I'll leave the rest to you, Mu Yu muttered to himself. He was still worried about Zhuge Shaoxing. Although Zhuge Shaoxing entered the tribulation passing stage earlier than him, Zhuge Shaoxing wasn't Mu Yu. Mu Yu's cultivation talent was very high and his cultivation was higher than Zhuge Shaoxing's. Coupled with his extraordinary means, there was nothing for him to be afraid of. At this time, Zhuge Shaoxing sneaked into the Stargate alone to carry out a mission. This was a very dangerous thing to do. Right now, Mu Yu could only hope that Zhuge Shaoxing's mission would go smoothly. He immediately jumped back to the teleportation array he came from and disappeared into another teleportation array. He was going to head to the Gate of Hell. While Ghost Cold and the other two weren't around and the Gate of Hell was lax, he had to destroy the Gate of Hell first. On the fourth mountain of the Stargate. This was already the fourth time Tianjingxin had knelt down. He felt that today's events were simply too unimaginable. It was one thing for 3 tribulation passing stage experts to appear, but now another incredible person had appeared. Tian Jiancheng. Greetings, Great Elder. Tianjingxin knelt down 4 times in less than 2 hours. He felt a little tired, but he didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. After all, Tian Jiancheng was the #1 expert below the tribulation passing stage. His status was incomparably noble. It was said that he had the potential to become a tribulation passing stage expert. At that time, the entire Stargate would be like a tiger that had grown wings. Therefore, Tianjingxin still bowed obediently. Where is Hoyang Shishu? Tian Jiancheng asked. Tian Jiancheng and Tian Yuehen were martial brothers. Tian Hoyang was Tian Jiancheng's martial uncle. Tianjingxin replied, He, Gate Master, and Ancestor Xingzhou are all in the main hall at the top of the mountain. Tian Jiancheng didn't have time to say anything. He didn't hesitate and directly rushed to the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain, Zhuge Shaoxing was already flustered by Tian Yuehen's questioning. He had to find an excuse to dodge it. However, this was the first time he had heard of the soul seal of the 3-layered palace. He didn't understand what the soul seal meant. At this time, if he forcibly used a formation to disguise the soul seal, Tian Yuehen would definitely notice it. Zhuge Shaoxing was very anxious. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. When he was about to be exposed, Tian Jiancheng's voice suddenly came from behind. Greetings, Gate Master. Greetings, Lord Hoyang. Tian Jiancheng bowed and said, It's over. Zhuge Shaoxing never expected that Tian Jiancheng would appear at this critical moment. The moment he saw Tian Jiancheng appear, his heart almost fell into despair. According to the news, Tian Jiancheng should be in Wuqiu City with the real Tian Hoyang. However, Zhuge Shaoxing's Tian Hoyang disguise appeared here. This meant that Zhuge Shaoxing's identity would be completely exposed by Tian Jiancheng, making things worse for him. Zhuge Shaoxing's expression changed rapidly. He clenched his fists and was ready to die together with Tian Yuehen. He was only at the second sky of crossing tribulation. He couldn't defeat Tian Yuehen. At this time, for Mu Yu's plan, he was ready to sacrifice himself. Even if he died, he had to leave a deep impression on Stargate. Tian Yuehen looked coldly at Tian Jiancheng and said, Tian Jiancheng, why are you here? Tian Jiancheng said respectfully, Gate Master, Lord Hoyang was ambushed by Ghost Depression in Wuqiu City. He is now seriously injured. I came back with Lord Hoyang. What? Zhuge Shaoxing looked at Tian Jianqing in disbelief. He thought that since Tian Jianqing appeared here, his identity could no longer be hidden. He didn't expect that Tian Jianqing would help him hide his identity. Tian Yuehen snorted and continued, "Then Hoyang Shirshu, where did your soul seal go? Or are you not?" Zhuge Shaoxing couldn't answer, but Tian Jianqing suddenly raised Zhuge Shaoxing's hand and said, "Gate Master, when Lord Hoyang was injured, it happened to be on his soul seal. The soul seal fluctuated. When I was healing him, I found that the soul seal had moved to his arm." A strange feeling quietly entered Zhuge Shaoxing's arm. Zhuge Shaoxing pulled up his sleeve and found that there was a thumb-sized white extreme celestial tablet mark on his arm. It was the mark of the 3 palaces. It was exactly the same as the mark on the back of Tian Yuehen's left hand. Zhuge Shaoxing suppressed the shock in his heart and immediately nodded in agreement. "Yes, this soul seal looks very unstable." Tian Yuehen looked at the soul seal on Zhuge Shaoxing's arm. After confirming that there was no mistake, the doubt on his face disappeared. He nodded and said, "I will ask the Gate of Hell for an explanation. Now I have something to discuss with Marshal Uncle Xingzhou." Zhuge Shaoxing said, "Gate Master, Marshal Brother Xingzhou just told me that he will come out of seclusion in 2 hours. We shouldn't disturb him." Tian Yuehen thought for a moment and realized that 2 hours wouldn't make much of a difference. He said, "Okay, I will come back in 2 hours." He immediately turned and left the 4th mountain. After Tian Yuehen left, Zhuge Shaoxing let out a sigh of relief. But soon, he stared at Tian Jianqing and said, "Who are you? Why did you help me?" Zhuge Shaoxing understood that Tian Jianqing in front of him probably already knew that he wasn't the real Tian Hoyang. Tian Jianqing said, "I just found out from my master that the Sanchong Palace gave all the people in the Tribulation Realm this soul seal to identify their identity. Fortunately, I knew that you were Zhuge Shaoxing. Fortunately, I came in time." Zhuge Shaoxing frowned. He was more and more curious about Tian Jianqing's identity. When he rolled up his sleeves to look at the soul seal again, he found that the soul seal had turned blue and then disappeared. "This isn't a soul seal. How did you manage to hide it from Tian Yuehen?" Zhuge Shaoxing was really shocked. However, Tian Jianqing, or Long Qing'an, didn't seem to have any intention of explaining. He just said, "Sect leader Zhuge, you should continue with your own business." Zhuge Shaoxing frowned. But now that he was in the Star Gate, if he left directly, all his previous efforts would be wasted. He immediately gritted his teeth and returned to the main hall. The Ghost Lord and the other 2 ferociously passed through the long teleportation formation. They were surrounded by strange and variegated formation patterns. When they opened their eyes, the Ghost Lord suddenly felt an inexplicable palpitation. When he was chasing Mu Yu, the transmission array's location was either a mountain stream, a valley, or a forest. But this time, he appeared in a strange main hall. At this time, a person was standing in the middle of the main hall. It was Tian Xingzhou. "Mu Yu, let's see where you can escape to this time." When Fantasy Sound saw Tian Xingzhou standing there and mistook him for Mu Yu, she was furious. She immediately slapped Tian Xingzhou without hesitation. However, the more Ghost Lord thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He seemed to have been led by the nose by Mu Yu. Just now, he was anxious to catch Mu Yu, so he didn't think much about it. But now that he calmed down and thought about it, he felt that this place was a bit strange. Wait. He has no cultivation. He's not Mu Yu. Ghost Lord quickly stopped Fantasy Sound. However, Phantom Sound's attack was too fast, and it was too late for her to stop. The Phantom Sound that she summoned blasted a huge hole in the Heavenly Speedboat's chest, and the heart was already in the Phantom Sound's hand. Tian Xingzhou suddenly opened his eyes wide and shouted in anger, "Ghost Cold, how dare you people from the Gate of Hell? How dare you break into Stargate?" Tian Xingzhou's voice was so loud that it spread out from the main hall. With the support of Zhuge Xiaoxing's transmission array, it spread throughout Stargate. Everyone in Stargate heard Tian Xingzhou's angry roar at the people from the Gate of Hell. Before Tian Xingzhou could finish his words, his vitality had already left his body, and he fell backward. No. Senior! Senior! Zhuge Xiaoxing had already rushed over from the corner and supported Tian Xingzhou. He shouted angrily, "People from the Gate of Hell, you killed my senior! My heavenly star sect will never forgive you." Zhuge Xiaoxing's angry voice spread far and wide through the transmission array. It spread throughout the fourth mountain and the entire Stargate. Chapter 1006. Stargate? Is this the Stargate? Ghost Lord turned pale with fright. He turned his head and looked around. There was a mysterious array flowing with colorful lights. It looked extraordinary, and they had just come out of this array. Go. Leave this place. Ghost Lord made a prompt decision and immediately rushed into the array. Because they had just come out of this array, as long as they entered the array, they could leave this place through the teleportation array. However, when they stepped into the teleportation array, they found that the teleportation array only lit up slightly. It didn't teleport them away at all. Mu Yu had already destroyed the other end of the teleportation array, cutting off their escape route. At this time, Zhuge Xiaoxing's voice, disguised as Tian Hoyang, spread throughout the Stargate. The Stargate's gate master, Tian Yuehen, was originally sitting cross-legged on the fifth mountain to cultivate. He didn't expect to suddenly hear Tian Xingzhou's angry roar at the people of the Gate of Hell, followed by Tian Hoyang's voice, which was mixed with endless grief and indignation. He was shocked and immediately rushed out. When he found that the source of the voice was from the fourth mountain, he was even more shocked. The fourth mountain was an important location of the Stargate. How could the people of the Gate of Hell have infiltrated it? Tian Yuehen immediately stepped out without hesitation. Waves of spiritual energy appeared in the air. When he appeared, he had already rushed to the hall at the top of the fourth mountain. The elders guarding the fourth mountain were all alarmed by the voice of Tian Hoyang. They all rushed into the air and surrounded the hall at the top of the mountain. However, these elders didn't dare to go to the hall because it was also a forbidden area for them. In the hall, Zhuge Xiaoxing hugged Tian Xingzhou, who had just died, and glared at Ghost Lord. He spoke very loudly. "The three of you from the Gate of Hell dare to intrude into the territory of the Stargate and kill senior brother Xingzhou. I will not forgive you." A saber appeared in Zhuge Xiaoxing's hand. Tian Hoyang was using this saber. Zhuge Xiaoxing was formed from runes. He immediately raised his saber and slashed at Ghost Lord and the other two. "Stop. This is a misunderstanding. We didn't kill Tian Xingzhou on purpose." Ghost Lord raised his hand, and a ghostly aura suddenly filled the hall, blocking Zhuge Xiaoxing's saber. He was stronger than Zhuge Xiaoxing, but because he was in the territory of the Stargate and had killed someone, if he hurt Tian Hoyang, it would be difficult to explain today. "You killed our great elder, and you still dare to say it's a misunderstanding? Don't even think about leaving here alive today." Zhuge Xiaoxing roared and slashed again. However, Ghost Lord had encountered too many things today. The twins were destroyed, and in order to chase someone, he had inexplicably come to this place. Now that he saw Zhuge Xiaoxing's saber coming at him, he used a little strength and counterattack. This attack was actually just to force him to retreat. However, Zhuge Xiaoxing took advantage of the momentum and deliberately crashed into the hall with Tian Xingzhou. With his strength of the tribulation stage, the impact was quite strong, and the entire hall was smashed into pieces. Boom! The hall that originally belonged to the core forbidden area of the Stargate was destroyed in front of everyone's eyes. What happened? Tian Yuehen had already arrived. Seeing the hall being destroyed in front of him, he suddenly became angry. At this time, two people rushed out from the ruins. They were Tian Hoyoung and Tian Xingzhou. Gate Master, the people of the Gate of Hell killed the Great Elder. Zhuge Shaoxing shouted loudly. The Great Elder? The Great Elder Tian Xingzhou is dead? Everyone in the Star Gate was stunned. Everyone's eyes fell on Tian Xingzhou, who was lying in the void beside Zhuge Shaoxing. At this time, Tian Xingzhou's heart was gone, and there was no vitality in his body. He was dead. What? Tian Yuehen felt a shock in his chest, as if he had been hit by something. Tian Xingzhou was the Grand Elder of Stargate. He had the highest cultivation and seniority, but now he was dead. As the Gate Master, Tian Yuehen was shocked. Who killed Martial Uncle Tian Xingzhou? Tian Yuehen's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He never thought that the Grand Elder of Stargate would meet with an accident here. Moreover, he died in the Stargate's restricted area. Recalling what Tian Hoyoung said about the people of the Gate of Hell injuring him, and then looking at Tian Xingzhou's corpse, anger filled his chest. It's them. The three people from the Gate of Hell led by the Gate Master of the Gate of Hell. Zhuge Shaoxing pointed at the three figures in the ruins. Ghost Cold. Why are you in the restricted area of Stargate? Tian Yuehen recognized the Gate Master of the Gate of Hell, Ghost Cold. Ghost Cold knew that he had fallen into Mu Yu's trap. Just now, when they were chasing after Mu Yu, who was disguised as Tian Xingzhou, they never thought that they would be brought to this place by the teleportation array. Because of his deep hatred for Mu Yu, when he saw the real Tian Xingzhou, he thought that it was Mu Yu. Therefore, he immediately rushed over and killed the real Tian Xingzhou. Fellow Taoist Moonmark, this is really a misunderstanding. We just came here to chase after Mu Yu. We didn't expect, Ghost Cold wanted to explain, but Tian Hoyoung interrupted him and shouted angrily, Nonsense! I just entered the hall and saw you kill the Great Elder of Stargate with my own eyes. How can you deny this? Ghost Cold, did you really kill the Great Elder of Stargate? Tian Yuehen rebuked angrily. Ghost Cold's face sank again. The murder was already a done deal, not to mention that Tian Hoyoung was a witness. There was no way to deny it. However, the worst thing was far from this. Just as the three of them were about to leave the core formation of the hall, the core formation suddenly exploded. The Heavenly Star Sect's Grand Protective Array, which was originally glowing, began to crumble under the feet of Gui Yuhan and the other two. As if it was avoiding the dense ghost chi, the entire Grand Protective Array began to explode. With the collapse of the core formation, the mountains of Stargate suddenly trembled violently. The huge mountains that were originally floating in the air began to tilt. It was as if there was a huge earthquake on the mountain, and the houses and trees on it began to collapse. Countless shocked and bewildered disciples of Stargate quickly rushed out of the collapsed houses and caves. They were extremely shocked and couldn't understand why the mountains that had stood tall for so many years suddenly began to fall. No, Ghost Cold, what did you do to the core formation of Stargate? Tian Yuehen's chest was filled with anger. Even with his tribulation passing stage cultivation, he couldn't stop the 7 mountains from falling. The 7 mountains of Stargate rapidly fell to the ground in front of everyone's eyes. With 7 earth-shattering explosions, the ground below instantly trembled violently. The ground was smashed open, and a huge crater was formed. Smoke and dust soared into the sky, causing the hearts of all the Stargate disciples to tremble. The most amazing 7 mountains of the cultivation world had been destroyed, just like that. Ghost Cold, you killed the Great Elder of Stargate and destroyed the foundation of Stargate. I must kill you today. All Stargate disciples, listen up. Kill these 3 for me. Faced with the death of the Great Elder and the fall of the 7 mountains of Stargate, Tian Yuehen's heart was filled with resentment. He roared and rushed toward Ghost Cold to kill him. All the disciples of Stargate also reacted. Although they were all cultivators and nothing happened to their sect, this kind of humiliation made all the disciples of Stargate red-eyed. One after another, they took out their magic weapons and charged toward Ghost Cold and the other two. The light of the magic weapons soared into the sky, shattering the clouds in the sky. As soon as Tianyuehen made his move, the wind and clouds changed dramatically. A long white sword appeared behind him and pointed directly at Ghost Cold. Go! Leave this place! Ghost Cold didn't want to fight with Tianyuehen. Tianyuehen's sect had been destroyed and the Great Elder had been killed. It was impossible to reason with Tianyuehen. Now, he could only leave this place and report this matter to the Sanchong Palace before making a decision. Ghost and shadow and fantasy sound didn't hesitate to turn into ghostly shadows and flee into the distance. Stargate's mountain guarding array had been destroyed and couldn't stop these three people. Tian Xingzhou was dead. At this time, only Tianyuehen and Tian Hoyang were left in Stargate. If a fight broke out, Ghost Cold and the other two wouldn't be afraid at all. However, they couldn't fight, so they could only retreat. However, these three people's actions had provoked Tianyuehen's anger. This was more like the crime of killing people to silence them, destroying their sect, and trying to escape. Pass down my order. All Stargate disciples are to kill anyone from the Gate of Hell on sight. Hoyang Shirshu, go and summon all the Stargate elders from all the cities. Follow me to the Gate of Hell and avenge the Great Elder. Tianyuehen roared in grief and indignation. Yes, Gate Master. Zhuge Shaoxing also shouted in a deep voice. He put down Tian Xingzhou's corpse and rushed outside in a flash. The Gate of Hell, I will definitely make you pay the price. Tianyuehen roared and rushed into the distance. Avenge the Great Elder. Kill the people from the Gate of Hell. All the Stargate disciples received Tianyuehen's order. Seeing their sect destroyed, they were also filled with grief and indignation. Without saying a word, they followed Tianyuehen and chased after the people from the Gate of Hell. Mu Yu used the commander's summoning array again and rushed in the direction of the Gate of Hell. This time, he had to destroy a teleportation array every time he teleported back. He knew the teleportation arrays of Stargate like the back of his hand. He had already planned all of this. The teleportation arrays along the way were the ones he had painstakingly set up in order to lure the people from the Gate of Hell to the forbidden area of Stargate. Then, he would let Zhuge Shaoxing receive them there and destroy the core teleportation array. In his plan, if Ghost Cold and the other two didn't kill Tian Xingzhou, then Zhuge Shaoxing would kill Tian Xingzhou and put the blame on Ghost Cold and the other two. Then, he would spread the news of the internal strife between the Gate of Hell and Stargate, making everyone think that the 8 gates were fighting among themselves. Then, he would take advantage of the fact that the Gate of Hell wasn't guarded by a tribulation stage cultivator to destroy the Gate of Hell. Mu Yu had already rushed back to the Gate of Hell using the teleportation arrays. Using the countless teleportation arrays, it took less than 2 hours to go back and forth between the Stargate and the Gate of Hell. If he used the speed of a tribulation stage cultivator to go from Stargate to the Gate of Hell, it would take at least 8 hours. Mu Yu had calculated this clearly. It's impossible to deal with maggots like you without some tricks. The threefold palace always relied on countless schemes to deal with Mu Yu. This time, Mu Yu planned to use a scheme to counterattack. He didn't expect Ghost Cold and Stargate to fight, but the people from the Gate of Hell had appeared in the forbidden area of Stargate. When they appeared, the core teleportation array was destroyed. This matter couldn't be cleared up. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.